Good evening and welcome to tonight's City Council meeting for Tuesday, January 16th, 2024. I'd first await a motion to leave the non-public and to seal the minutes of the non-public session.
So moved.
Second.
And I guess all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Kelly, will you please take the roll?
Sure. Mayor McEachran,
Here.
Assistant Mayor Kelly is absent this evening. Councilor Tabor,
Here.
Councilor Cook,
Here.
Councilor Dutton,
Here.
Councilor Blaylock,
Here.
Councilor Bagley.
We are working on bringing him in via
He
Zoom.
will be coming in via Zoom. Councilor Moreau,
Here.
Councilor Lombardi.
Here.
Would you please stand and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Now I'd like to pass it to Councilor Blaylock for a few words on the great season the Portsmouth High School football team had. I believe we have some in attendance, although the weather might have kept them.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you, Your Honor. We simply would like to celebrate our Portsmouth High School football team this year. They were successful to have a undefeated season, something that hasn't been accomplished since 1976. The city of Portsmouth just want to tell you, gentlemen, how proud they are of what you accomplished this year, of your hard work, your resilience, your dedication to your craft, and representing the city. It's truly an amazing accomplishment. To go undefeated in Division I, like I said, it hasn't happened since 1976. So you've accomplished something that those other teams have not been able to accomplish since then. I mean, as an adult and one of your coaches, I've learned so many lessons from you. I've been lucky enough to coach some of you since the 7th grade. But I should be very, very proud of what you've accomplished. I know the city of Portsmouth is. And I don't know if the captains or the Coach Pafford would like to come up and say some words. But you're welcome.
First of all, I just want to thank you for acknowledging us in our season. We have the captains and a few other members. We didn't think it would be pertinent to bring all 116 kids here, so I didn't think that would push everybody else out. So I just wanted you to know I am extremely proud of this group. They are mature past their years. Our leadership from our seniors has been phenomenal, and their work ethic did the city and the school proud, and we are all proud of them. And I couldn't be happier. And thank you for recognizing us for this achievement. Thank you.
Thank you, Coach Pafford. We have a few things, gifts
For the captains.
for the captains.
These are larges and these are extra larges.
I think they're all going to be extra larges.
Okay.
I know there's two. Like,
Do you want one to-
Those are fantastic mustaches you guys are working on. You guys want to come just? Yeah, come on. We'll just have us stand, take a picture here. Everybody would stand. Oh, you guys can sit actually, because you're sitting, and that's probably easier. Oh, yeah, broke the finger.
Thank you. Congratulations. Thank you, sir.
Congratulations.
Thank you, guys.
There's certainly a lot you learn from sport, and the toughest lessons that I carry with me to this day. I learned on a field or a boat, and you did Portsmouth incredibly proud. Just the perseverance through the year. It's a commendable season, and we are proud because of what your work represents, and that's teamwork and putting the team in front of yourselves, and that's always a lesson that's worth remembering and relearning on a daily basis. So thank you, guys. Something that is maybe slightly less competitive, but appreciated in the city of Portsmouth, the Holiday Lights contest winners. We have some prizes for those, and I'm just so delighted that just on a high level, it's remarkable the work that goes in. Elaine Epting, is organizing a lot of this. The Citywide Neighborhood Committee. It's just, it literally brings brightness and light into a darkness. I'm married to a woman from the South, and so the winter is it's just trying to stay uplifted and stay happy, and being able to drive around and see so many people committed to brightening each other's lives. It's truly remarkable. And so we wanted to honor that in the best way possible. We have some gifts, and and if you wouldn't mind just standing as I call out your name. I know that there's a couple that couldn't attend from the honorable mentions, but we do have first that couldn't attend Brent Goulet on honorable mention, and Brian McGuire. Thank you both. Now, Matt, Nicole, wait, hold on. Janet Goldstein, will you rise as an honorable mention? Okay, well, very impressive. And then for the Kids' Choice, we had Matt and Nicole Breyer. Could you please stand at the back there? All right. Thanks, guys. We have the best traditional, Molly Wilson and family. Thank you, guys. And Chris Kraft for most creative. All right. Now, the only thing I don't remember is which gifts go with which. And that's,
There's names on the back.
no. In terms of there's a ride along.
Yeah, there's,
This is, when it's not on the teleprompter, that's when it.
let's see.
Oh, it is.
I think it's in here.
Okay, it's
for
in
that.
here. Okay.
Yes. So this is for Molly Wilson.
Molly Wilson, can you please come up? You have a ride along with the fire department. This is probably the most exciting, guys. And this is, at your date of your choosing, so it doesn't have to be in the dead of winter. You also have a certificate, a blanket, and a 101 objects. So, thank you, guys. All right. Hopefully it's exciting, but not too exciting on the fire truck. Sorry, we're gonna crash it.
Meal with you.
All right. Chris Kraft, you guys come up. This is the really disappointing prize. This is me taking you guys out to lunch. Choose a location. So you guys can pick the restaurant and put a blanket and the award. So thank you guys.
Should be the council of the choosing.
Right along with the police department.
All right, and this is Kids' Choice. We're sitting you up with the cops, so Matt and Nicole. Right along.
Big dress.
You guys get the
Best dressed award.
Have you heard this? Have you seen this yet? Have you read it? That's great. All right. Well, thank you guys. This is by far like the best dressed here tonight. So So I will say, as we're going to be restarting all of the Blue Ribbon committees this evening, there is the city and standing committees, the citywide neighborhood committees in need of some members. You guys look like you are, if you want to put any applications in to that, I think it would be well worth the effort in terms of engagement. You guys seem very engaged, and I would love to see you guys involved in the city of Portsmouth. It's a type of positivity that we'd love to bring in here as much as we can. So just on the effort that it went in to do this and the joy that it brings to every one of your neighbors on the broader city of Portsmouth, just in the spirit of the holiday season, thank you on behalf of a grateful city. We are very appreciative of the work that goes in. Hopefully you feel the same, and just very much indebted to the work that you guys do. So thank you very much. You do not have to stick around for the rest of the meeting, but if you could stay for one proclamation, I would love it to read this one, because in the spirit of Portsmouth, we're going to pronounce Harold Whitehouse Day. I see that his granddaughters are here, both Alexandra and Kylie, and I'll ask them to come up and say a few words after this proclamation. But Harold was an amazing man who served in a lot of different ways. Served as, I look at Josh and I look at Councilor Tabor, I see an Army veteran, I see a newspaper man. And when I look at Harold, I see both in terms of the ability to serve his country, to serve his community, served on school board, city council, PTS for a number, decades. And I didn't get to work with Harold as much as he's certainly worked for Portsmouth. But it was interesting the first time that I met him. I thought, okay, well, this man has become an institution. Institutions don't often, give strong criticism and feedback. Sometimes they rest on their laurels. But we were here at it was back when we did the public dialogue more. And I remember Harold just kind of lighten us up on something. And he did it in such a way that was so cordial, so collegial, but still with a strength of understanding of the topic, which happened to be traffic at that time, and an understanding of really what was reasonable and not reasonable. And there's a lot that can happen up here where we can talk ourselves into a lot. But Harold was always, he made good decisions because he thought of who he was serving and kept them at the forefront of his mind. So there's a lot of people that have done a lot for Portsmouth. I can't think of anybody that's done more for Portsmouth in such varied capacities. And honoring him certainly, while it's important in his own right to his family, I'm sure, that loves him very much, it's important to the city of Portsmouth to honor those that have dedicated their entire lives to the city so that others might be encouraged to give, we'll round it up to 101% of what Harold has given. If you can give 1% of what Harold has given, and if we can all do that in our lives, Portsmouth will be the city that we all believe it to be, hope it to be, and that's just the greatest city. But it's the greatest city because we have the greatest people, and Harold was first among equals there for sure. So I'm delighted to read a proclamation carving into the record Harold White House Day. Whereas it was with the deepest sadness that the city learned of the passing last week of Harold Whitehouse, a lifelong resident of Portsmouth for 95 years, whom many say exemplified the best of Portsmouth. And whereas after service to his country in the United States Navy, Harold served his second love next to his 56 years with his beloved wife, Ruth, the city of Portsmouth, for more than 3 decades, contributing, participating, and fulfilling one job as citizen to the end. And whereas Harold served on the City Council for 16 years, on the school board for 12 years, as police commissioner for 2 years, and is a member of the Parking and Traffic Safety Committee right up through his decision to step down on September 7th, 2023. And whereas Harold also volunteered his time for 60 years as a poll worker, defending the institutions of our democracy and welcoming voters new and old as ward-fied greeter. And whereas Harold took part in the city's 350th celebration in 1973 and our 400th, and must have decided he was leaving us in good hands as he passed the torch to the next generation. And whereas the plaque on Harold Whitehouse Bridge that was dedicated in June 2018 reads, "Military veteran, civic volunteer, Southender," so many of us were honored to have worked alongside him, watching his principles at work as he served his community, to have shared in the joy in living, and to have called him friend. Now, therefore, I, Dago McCachran, Mayor of the City of Portsmouth, on behalf of the members of the City Council and citizens of Portsmouth, do hereby proclaim January 16th, 2024 as Harold Whitehouse Day and call upon the residents of Portsmouth to pause and remember his dedication and to model themselves as citizen of the best of what he taught us. Given with my hand in the seal of the City of Portsmouth on the 16th day of January 2024.
We won't speak as long as Harold used to, I promise.
There's not a timer on there.
I'll be brief.
Yeah.
First of all, I want to thank you all on behalf of Harold for recognizing and celebrating him in such a special way. If he were here right now, which, let's be honest, he absolutely is, he would be over the moon with gratitude veiled as fake reluctance. If there's anything my grandpa loved more than his wife and my sister and I, it was the city of Portsmouth. He was the ultimate example of a man who wanted to leave his neighborhood better than how he found it, and made sure to do just that while maintaining his sense of humor and stirring up some chaos along the way. As you can imagine, he had a lot of time to sit and ruminate on anything and everything over the past few months, and I was lucky enough to have been the person who would hear all about it. To my initial surprise, those deep thoughts were actually things like, do you think the voters at Ward 5 will know what to do if I'm not there? And do you think that they know if I had anything to do with it, there would be no iPads involved in the process? I assured him that yes. I can promise you that absolutely everybody there understands that you had nothing to do with their iPads being there. He would get so hung up on the little things, but that's how his passion for the city manifested itself, because to him, they weren't the little things, but the foundation on which a community relies on. So in his honor, if you admire something as much as Harold admired the city of Portsmouth, do everything you can to maintain the integrity of it. Be firm in your principles, but excited about change, and always look out for the interest of your everyday citizen. And last but not least, I want to thank you all for recognizing the many years of dedication my grandpa gave to the city. But I also want to thank you and the council members that came before you for simply being his friend and getting a kick out of him as much as I did. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Kylie. Now, I know guys you might be looking for a time when you wanted to all stand up and leave. I know there's school tomorrow and the roads are inclement, so if folks do want to take a break and get back to, I don't know if it's homework or not, but certainly feel free to take the kids out down. We'll just take a couple minutes while you do that.
Is there more than one?
We have one more proclamation, this one striking a much more somber tone. Whereas January is declared National Stalking Awareness Month in 2011 because stalking is prevalent in every community and affects all people regardless of age, socioeconomic status, sexual orientation, gender, race, religion, or nationality. And whereas 1 in every 3 women and 1 in every 6 men are victims of stalking in their lifetimes, and whereas stalking can upend the lives of victims and their families, forcing them to make tough decisions, including changing jobs, relocating homes, or even hiding their addresses through the state-offered programs to protect themselves and their families. And whereas in 2024, President Biden has called on all Americans to speak out against stalking and to support the efforts of advocates, courts, service providers, and law enforcement to help those who are targeted and send the message to perpetrators that these crimes will not go unpunished. And whereas the City of Portsmouth has employed a victim witness advocate since 1999 with the funding from the Violence Against Women Act to work with the Portsmouth Police Department to support victims of stalking, and whereas the city works with Haven, one of 12 crisis centers across the state, to provide 24/7 support to victims of sexual assault, domestic violence, sexual harassment, and stalking, and whereas the city reminds everyone that confidential local help is available 24 hours a day at Haven Violence Prevention and Support Hotline at 603-994-SAFE. That's SAFE. And whereas the city of Portsmouth stands with all New Hampshire prosecutors as sentries on the front lines advocating on behalf of the victims of stalking. And now there, I, for Declan McCachran, Mayor of the City of Portsmouth, on behalf of the members of the City Council and citizens of Portsmouth, do hereby claim January 2024 in Portsmouth as Stalking Awareness Month and call upon the citizens to come together to reaffirm our commitment to ending stalking and supporting survivors, given with my hand and the seal of the City of Portsmouth on this 16th day of January 2024. Thank you.
Ryan's here.
Oh, Ryan, hey, come on up and does so much good work for the city. Thank you, Ryan. All right, Monty, you should get a different seat, my man.
Brian Grogan, our victim witness
sir.
advocate, just accepted that on behalf of the city.
And the bridge is going yellow.
And the Memorial Bridge will be glowing yellow in honor this evening.
Thank you, Ryan.
Thank you, Ryan. We now have the acceptance of minutes for November 9th, 2023, November 13th, 2023, November 20th, 2023, and December 4th, 2023. I'd wait a motion to accept the minutes as presented.
So moved.
Second?
Any discussion? All in favor? Oh, we got a roll call vote because we have Andrew.
Is he on?
Is he on?
Yes.
Okay. We're going to start with Counselor Tabor,
Yes.
Counselor Cook,
Yes.
Counselor Dutton,
Yes.
Counselor Blaylock,
Yes.
Counselor Bagley,
Yes.
Counselor Moreau,
Yes.
Counselor Lombardi,
Yes.
Mayor McCachran.
Yes.
Unanimous.
Kelly, I don't know how you did it with the upcoming primary on the 23rd, but it's a lot of minutes.
It is, but there's another set to do.
There's another set to do. All right, next up, we have recognitions and volunteer committee reports. We have the Safe Water Advisory Group. There's no presentation. Is it a verbal report back?
Written in the packet.
Just in the packet. So so we will accept that. Any questions on? Seeing none, we will open it up to Public comment. First up is Joe Calderola on the solar HDC. Good to see you, Joe.
Hi, good evening. I guess I'm still supposed to introduce myself?
Yeah, I kind of introduced you. You just have to say your name again. And
All right, Joe Calderola, 170 Dennett Street. Those of us who have not paid close attention may have missed the tremendous advances in solar photovoltaics in the last 10 years. 15,000 pounds of carbon dioxide. That's the carbon emissions saved from the solar power system on one house. And I know that because it's my house in 2023. 15,000 pounds, that's 7.5 tons. How much is that? Because what's just a number, right? By reference, the EPA says that the average new car sold in 23 will emit 4 tons of carbon dioxide per year. So adding solar to just one house has more impact than taking a car off the road for an entire year. I was stunned when I looked at the report from my house for last year, for calendar 23, because I had no idea it was actually going to do that well. It's astounding. This issue is not an either or. It should be looked at as a both and. It's not that we shouldn't support historic preservation. Of course we should. It's that given where we are with climate change and the climate crisis, a new value has arisen that is at least equal in importance to historic preservation. And that's carbon reduction and clean energy. Both and. Neither should be allowed to impede the other. So the judgments are subjective, was witnessed by the split votes on the commission. Just to wax a little bit on it, if somehow we could get solar power installed on every roof in the historic district, my subjective opinion would be that it would be beautiful. It would be something Portsmouth could be proud of. It would make national news. Historic Portsmouth supporting green solar power. Wow. So as a follow-up, assuming that this does get to first reading and it's a public hearing, I've got a slideshow I prepared. I went around within a few blocks of my house and took pictures of 16 solar panel installations. Is that it?
That's it, but you can finish up that thought.
Okay. So I got a slideshow and I'll be able to present it at the public hearing to show the issues that arise if you try to subject solar power to the HDC. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Joe. Next up, Roy Helsel on questions on development.
Roy Helsel, Middle Street, Portsmouth. Questions about development in our city. Has a concern of overdevelopment throughout our city ever been thought of? Why are developers allowed to infringe on the wetlands within the ordinance's setbacks? Will Portsmouth have the same flooding that Hampton had in the future because of this? What is the level set for references on affordable housing development? And what is the level of income for workforce housing that is being talked about and what the city is going to have built? And I recommend that the city residents receive a management report on what's happening in the city from the manager. When will the next audit be done? I hope it's not next 10 or 20 years. Since many systems have been changed and because of new electronics and new positions established and more hiring by the city has occurred, When is the city going to have a manpower study for the city positions, and when was it last completed? Will a study be done and completed for traffic effects for the fire department, police, and city services out of Panaway Manor? And how large is the development going to be in the Lister area? Will low-income elderly and retired Portsmouth citizens be able to afford to be in these developments? I always thought that board members and boards were established to ensure that the city ordinances were being followed and were a question and where questions and insurance that they are followed when exceptions are asked and variances are asked for. And board members were supposed to be questioning and ensure that this is being followed for the betterment of the city and our citizens. Thank you.
Thank you, Roy. Next up, Martin Ryan on the topic of the HTC.
Good evening, Martin Ryan. I am a sitting member of the HTC, but tonight I am representing myself as just a citizen. Happy New Year. Unfortunately, this new year and the new term comes with an extremely misguided proposal to eliminate the Historic District Commission's oversight of solar panels. When this hastily conceived, poorly advertised proposal was made last month, several of us members of the Commission and many of you as councilors called for an open discussion, and this has not happened. We had hoped before you made such a major decision, we could take time to review the record. If you did review the record, it would show that the HDC does not take severe exception to allowing solar panels. It would show that the Commission takes a fair and thoughtful approach to reviewing all applications concerning all issues. The record would show that the Commission has guidelines that it follows. These guidelines are based on the best concepts in historic preservation. Before such an intense policy change is enacted, ask whether you would allow solar panels to be placed on a historic slate roof or a wooden shake roof. Is it even possible? Or do you have to allow the applicant to remove the slate and the wood shingles as a condition of allowing solar panels? Should chimneys be removed to allow solar panels? Have these questions even been considered? Personally, I feel that the Commission needs to find the right balance between protecting the historic assets of the community and respecting the property rights of the homeowner and the protection of the environment. I always look at how an application can get approval. Sometimes it can't and shouldn't. Please don't make the mistake of thinking that a commissioner votes down an application containing solar panels, that commissioner doesn't care for the environment. We all want a clean, safe, natural environment. But we also recognize that our historic district and the cultural environment is also vitally important. It shouldn't be a one-size-fits-all issue, which the proposed amendment is. Please don't make the decision which will have lasting negative effect on the city's historic environment. You can reference what was done in the North End some 60 years ago. Those making decisions regarding urban renewal were following the latest fashionable thinking. They were sure they were acting in the greater good. Don't let the council be associated with a similar historic mistake. Thank you.
Thank you, Martin. Next up, Peter Huda on process or lack of.
Good evening. Peter Huda, 280 South Street. The first thing I asked you for previously in the audit meeting was the management letter. It has been consistently in the packet of the council meeting where it was discussed. and I would like you to make it either available online or available on paper. The next thing I'd like to talk to you about is the agenda item under Councilors Tabor and Kelly. This is housing at Sherburne School. This is where I'm going to ask for the process to be outlined to the council. There was quite a few assumptions made in the dialogue that was in here, and of great concern before this moves forward. Down in the middle paragraph in number 1, it says, for creating this committee, the first task would be to prepare agreements for the disposition of Sherburne and then look for other opportunities. I would ask that the city attorney refresh the minds of the council on Title 41, Section 14A, acquisition of land, buildings, or both, demolitions of buildings. It outlines the process that you need to go through. Basically, you need to go through all the land boards and then hold 2 public hearings. So it is of great concern that you're going to jump forward and just try to draw up these agreements without having any public hearings and going through this. So I would ask the city attorney to please discuss this before you move forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Petra. Next up, Esther Kennedy on also topic of process.
Esther Kennedy, 41 Pickering Ave, and I cannot agree more with Councilor or ACC member Mr. Ryan. There is solar panels out on Round Island. You can't see them because I spent hours making sure it was appropriate. On 40 Pickering Street, right across from me, that house is totally environmental, totally inclusive. They have solar panels, they have geothermal, and it's in the HDC. So I would encourage you to either have a meeting and talk about it, or at least let the HDC do what they can do well and what they have done well in the past. The next thing I'd like to talk about is the process for Mr. Hewitt. I have sat numerous years up there where you are all sitting. I have been attacked by entities within the city. They called my school. They wanted to have information about me on city letterhead. I have had an opportunity to be attacked because I stopped a hotel from being at the port. So I know what it's like when a person asks questions, a person gets information, a person digs in and finds the truth. The reason we have the sewage treatment plant on the end and not over the whole island is because of what I did to save the island. So I ask you, in reading the charges with Mr. Hewitt, this great man who is very intelligent, is very respected by our state authorities, what is a quorum? Now, some of you have dealt with a quorum in me. So I'm not going to go into a lot of detail, but I don't have a problem going into detail during the public hearing about that, which I believe was much more inappropriate than sending an email. And I also had an opportunity, as I said, on a statewide committee, governor, to listen to the AG's office talk about a quorum. I asked our city attorney to bring that person in to talk to all of you. And I believe in our handouts that I shared, it's pretty clear that what happened would not be considered a quorum. But it's also very clear that what some of you did was a quorum. Thank you.
Thank you, Esther. Next up, Karen Rosania on artist, and I can't read the first. That's my fault. But
Yeah, zoning
Zoning?
barriers.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Good evening, everybody. My name is Karen Rosania. Live at 32 Boss Ave here in Portsmouth. I am an artist and a small business owner in the city, and I also have served as the co-chair for Portsmouth's Cultural Plan Subcommittee in 2023 and was recently voted into the new Arts and Cultural Commission. So thank you. And I'm actually here tonight to advocate for artists. I moved to Portsmouth in 2021 and chose this great city as a place to start my new art studio for one primary reason: the arts. However, like many artists before me, I've been surprised and frustrated at the barriers artists face in the city, and I'm asking for your help and support. Back in 2001, artists and residents voiced their feedback asking for fewer zoning barriers to enable artists to live, work in one space. This was documented in the City of Portsmouth's 2002 Cultural Plan. Also documented is the unfortunate fact that Portsmouth has seen a mass exodus of artists. Fast forward to our current cultural plan. In the fall of 2023, through extensive surveys and focus groups, again, residents and artists voiced their request for fewer zoning barriers for artists, including allowing them to teach small art classes in their home studios. I and other artists have spoken at recent land use meetings. We've learned several other cities across the state of New Hampshire do in fact allow students to come into home studios for small art lessons. They have accomplished this through language in their home occupation ordinances. I know this is on the agenda tonight. I'm asking the City of Portsmouth to please prioritize more support and fewer zoning barriers for artists. Artists have been the backbone to this great city for probably centuries, and we need to take action now to attract and retain artists for years to come. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Karen. Next up is Chris White on the topic of process.
I am Chris White. I live at 28 Porter Street here in Portsmouth. Mayor McEachern and City Council, thank you for this chance to speak. I wish to speak to the proposed actions outlined in Attorney Susan Morrill's correspondence regarding our Planning Board member, Jim Hewitt. Well, once again, the city has taken vindictive, punitive actions against a hardworking citizen as a way to show the world the city is all-powerful and controlling. We have seen this film too many times before. Frankly, it is nauseating how it goes. City Hall's view of the world can be so insular and defensive and self-affirming. Please get your mind out of the top floor. This correspondence shows government, even our local government, as a totalitarian state, incapable of actually governing in a balanced way, honoring the individuals and the minorities' rights. Rather, it seeks to teach us lessons that require absolute fealty and subservience to its authority. In this case, you claim this individual committed malfeasance. May I suggest that you take your knee off his neck? Consider that instead you have a resident who cares deeply about the city and its welfare. Reflect on the fact that in his actions, he strove to gather further information so a better informed public board could reach a wiser decision. Step back from this precipitous and frankly defamatory action and recognize just how erroneous this is. Please stop behaving like some dictator. Try behaving like an enlightened leader seeking a moderate way forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Next up, Eric Anderson on Planning Board public hearing.
Thank you. My name is Eric Anderson, 38 Georges Terrace, Portsmouth. I'll make an additional comment. I would like to support the efforts of what Petra Huda expressed earlier in her comments with regards to the process of workforce housing, especially in the Panaway Manor neighborhood. I think you can all recollect that it was just about a year ago you attended the most well-attended public hearing of a neighborhood with regards to the subject. And I hope it's not forgotten. It would be nice to hear the distinction between what you're heading for now with the housing committee versus what you publicly expressed at one particular point as a blue ribbon committee to take this subject under contemplation. I'd like to hear the difference of that somewhere along the way as you discuss it later on. Second, I'd like to also agree with some of the previous commenters on a subject you have on the agenda tonight with a public hearing possibility for one of the planning board members. I and a lot of the general public might not be privileged to all the information surrounding this, but it's led to some determination that a public hearing is in order for the expulsion of that particular member from the planning board. Whether the member asked too many questions, whether he was not the yes man that kind of followed the determination of that planning board in previous decisions. I would just like to paraphrase it down to that you would not consider a public hearing, that you would make resolution to this particular issue in a different manner than the expulsion of a very concerned citizen, in my estimation. And I wouldn't classify it as a public hearing. I would more classify it as a public hanging. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Eric. Next up, Reagan Rudig on the topic of HDC and solar panels. And congratulations on being elected chair of the HDC.
Thank you very much. Reagan Rudig, 70 Highland Street. I'm just back briefly. I just wanted to come and reiterate my stance. I speak again for myself, not the rest of the Historic District Commission, but I'd love to see the HDC, the Planning Board, and the Planning Department come together and actually have a discussion, maybe several discussions, because I think we can do better than just the promotion of solar panels. I think we can look at promoting our sustainability goals as a city in a more holistic way that will encompass the district and also promote anything else outside of the district. It can be, like I said, more than just solar panels and replacement windows. There are many ways that we can properly encourage energy efficiency in historic buildings and promote reuse of materials and unnecessary waste and demolition. But I want to explore all of these things together and perhaps even get an expert to come in and help us rewrite our guidelines so that we can actually just do a better job at this and not risk any sort of threats to our historic district and our historic resources, because they are, like I said before, just as important. So I'd like to have some collaboration there. Thank you very much. Have a good evening.
Thank you very much, Reagan. Next up, Paige Trace on the topic of Portsmouth.
For the record, Paige Trace, 27 Hancock Street. Reagan Rudig's writing is better than mine. Thank you.
Not according to this.
Process, politics, and theater. The city council packet shouldn't be used to condemn somebody in the court of public opinion, nor should it be used to discard an inconvenience. Our city attorney requested a public hearing to remove a planning board member. Then, by approving the public insertion of supposedly supporting documentation, it appears you've already tried the planning board member. Whether the member is guilty or innocent, whether they're a whistleblower or just a nuisance non-player with developers, is not for me to decide. What's disheartening is that it looks like a process intentionally set with a focus towards achieving a specific result. With due respect, who is the board member's advocate? Where, pray God, is their due process? The Constitution affords us the privilege of being innocent until proven guilty. If the City Council were a grand jury, the laws of this state call for preliminary dissemination of the facts to be confidential. Do you call your packet confidential? Do the rights of your residents not matter to you? I understand you don't care for clapping in council chambers. I get that. But that's called freedom of speech. Just as we're afforded the privilege of being innocent until proven guilty, remember when you had your reasons for a very private early meeting with developers at City Hall on January 11th, 2022. And before that, the city manager on August 26th, 2021, approved the hire of outside independent legal counsel to represent the interest of the planning board without notification or transparency. This city is capable of going to great lengths to protect those whose actions they feel worthy of protection. Tonight, I fear the reverse is true. It now appears your council's understanding of the facts is one-sided and may be tainted. What do you intend to do? Hold your next public hearing? Or will there be tickets? So members of the City Council, the city attorney cries disruption of process on the planning board, yet it appears you're guilty of same. Supposed evidence of someone's perceived guilt should not be publicly trotted out to the city in a city council packet or fed to the paper. This apparent shredding of a reputation is sometimes called defamation of character. To all volunteer board members in Portsmouth, a word of caution. Please be aware of the apparently newly implied city memo. You really do want to be a team player. Thank you.
Thank you, Paige. Next up, Peter Whalen on Zoom.
Good evening, Mayor McEachran. Can you hear me?
Loud and clear, Peter.
And City Council, thank you for letting me speak. In tonight's city packet, starting on page 91, there was a disappointing attack on a longtime Portsmouth resident who currently serves on the Portsmouth Planning Board by our current city attorney. Written like a true prosecutor who is attempting to bring charges against a criminal. The only difference is that this is a city resident who serves on the planning board as a volunteer. A total political hit job by our city staff and attorney with zero due process for this long-time city residents. This is all about process. How is this resident going to defend themselves when our city has already called him guilty and called into question his character? You as city councilors represent us as citizens of this city. The city staff should not be tainting the character of our residents without due process. We want our resident volunteers on our boards to ask the hard questions and be advocates for the residents and not be sheep. A few years ago, 2 city councilors tried to remove a sitting city councilor who was the assistant mayor over the Weber case. This was about non-public information. They failed in their efforts. The city councilor was a true whistleblower and stopped a very bad outcome. Sure hope our city council does not continue this effort against this planning board member. There are many other pressing issues in our city than conducting this witch hunt and character assassination of Jim Hewitt. This action calls into question all current and future decisions of the planning board during this council's tenure. Catering to a few select developers is a slippery slope, which will have long-term implications. Has not this council learned its lesson with Redgate Kane? I urge the members of this city council to let this individual serve out his term, which has a year to go, and they either reappoint him or don't reappoint him. Stay focused on the real issues, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. Next up, Pat Bagley on Zoom.
Thank you, Mayor and City Councilors. Just a few notes following up on Peter's comments. I find it ironic that this council, which has met regularly for 2 years in non-public meetings, will now decide whether to publicly try and condemn Jim Hewitt. Accusations and evidence are included in tonight's very public council packet. Not everyone reads the packet, but conveniently, the Herald published the story so that we have trial by newspaper. Not sure why I am surprised, but I am most disheartened. The process lacks dignity. The city attorney's memo says that Mr. Hewitt's emails to staff, such as TAC, represent his continued inability to limit his review to the record before him. So if Mr. Hewitt is guilty of seeking transparency, what does that say about Portsmouth? Mr. Hewitt's background greatly benefits the planning board and thereby all of us. In closing, I'm asking you, the City Council, is this how Portsmouth rolls in 2024? Because it feels more like 1624. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Pat. Next up, written down, although hand is not raised on Zoom, Mr. Jeremy Eggleton. If you would please state your name and city for the record.
Mr. Mayor, City Council, I would
Can
like
you
to-
hear me?
I was just going to introduce my attorney, Jeremy Eggleston. I'm Jim Hewitt at 726 Middle Road. Thank you.
Thank you. Are you able to hear me okay?
Yes, we are, Jeremy.
Thank you. As noted, Mayor McEachern and the members of the council, my name is Jeremy Eggleton. I'm with the law firm of Orr and Reno in Concord, and I represent Jim. And there's little of substance that I can really add to the excellent statements that I just heard from various members of the public. And so I'll keep it brief. I understand that there's a motion on the table later this evening that seeks to set a hearing for the City Council on February 5th to remove Mr. Hewitt from the Planning Board for cause. I'm not sure folks understand this completely, but generally speaking, when a Planning Board member is appointed, they're appointed for a term, and that term runs its conclusion, and then they're either reappointed or they're not reappointed. And the point is that the Planning Board member will be insulated from the politics that might govern their decision making, that they can focus on the issues at hand. And unfortunately, that's not what's going on in this case. The need for, excuse me, one moment, please. I apologize. I had to break out there for a second. Unfortunately, that's not what's going on here. This is a for-cause removal because it's the only way under the statute that a Planning Board member can be removed from his position. And the unfortunate language in the statute is that the city has to prove that the Planning Board member was engaged in inefficiency, neglect of duty, and malfeasance in office. Now, those words target really two eventualities, either neglect or corruption. And what is alleged, what I saw in the packet tonight, was an allegation that Mr. Hewitt was seeking information, that he sought it outside the record, that he circulated it between and amongst various board members and made comments. Now, I don't know if that's procedurally correct or not right now. I'm going to look into that for sure. But it wasn't malfeasance, and it sure wasn't neglect of duty. And to suggest otherwise is nothing more than defamation and abuse of power. And I choose those words carefully. This effort is a waste of city time and resources, and I encourage the council to reject the effort, to stand down, and to let Mr. Hewitt finish his duly appointed term. And obviously, if there is a hearing on the 5th, I will be there. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeremy. Next up, Chris Dwyer.
Hello. Can you hear me this evening?
Loud and clear, Chris.
Good. Chris Dwyer, 600 Broad Street in Portsmouth, and I'm speaking tonight as chairman of the Public Art Review Committee, and just wanted to issue an invitation to counselors as well as to members of the public. As you all know, we have been given the opportunity to commission public art for Pierce Island, which the committee is very excited about doing. We have selected a site and we have begun the process. Because it's a percent for art commission, we want to be sure to engage the public in gathering ideas for themes, concepts, images for the artwork. We know how meaningful Pierce Island is to many people, and there's so much to consider on Pierce Island: the history, the recreational possibilities, the maritime functions, that we see gathering public input as really essential for the process. So there will be 3 opportunities, informal discussions that we will host: 2 at the library, one on January 25th, one on February 15th at 6:30. And you'll see soon in the city newsletter as well as in press releases those times. We're also holding an opportunity, a Zoom opportunity, for those who can't make an evening meeting, and that will be at noon on February 12th. So look for that information. We plan to, in about an hour, provide some background to people and engage in a brainstorming process that will bring ideas into an RFP process. We're hoping that by this time next year, public art would be installed on Pierce Island. So thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you very much, Chris. Seeing no other hands on Zoom, that concludes public comment. Next up, public hearing and vote on ordinances and/or resolutions. First reading of ordinance, amending Chapter 6, License, Article 17, Outdoor Dining Encumbrance Permit, Section 6.1701-6.1707. Await a motion to pass first reading and schedule a public hearing and second reading at the February 5th, 2024 City Council meeting to amend Chapter 6 Licenses, Article 17, Outdoor Dining Encumbrance Permit, Sections 6.1701 through 6.1707.
So moved.
Second. Any discussion? All in favor? Oh,
Aye.
no, never mind. Roll call. Forgot.
That's okay.
Andrew, I'm sorry, I forgot about you. Roll call vote.
Counselor Tabor?
Yes.
Counselor Cook?
Yes.
Counselor Denton?
Yes.
Counselor Blaylock?
Yes.
Counselor Bagley?
Yes.
Counselor Moreau?
Yes.
Counselor Lombardi?
Yes.
Mayor McCaffrey?
Yes.
Unanimous?
We're now on to the city manager's items which require action.
Your Honor. Item number 1 is a request of the council to confirm or affirm the goals that you set back in 2 years ago, just about now. Because as we prepare the plan that will outline the FY25 budget, which is already underway on the staff level, per the GFOA and per best practices, we like to include and support in our actions and through our implementation what the City Council has forth as goals. So in your packet, under item number 1, would be the goals that have been in place. So the question to this council is, would you like to keep those goals the same? Would you like to revise them? Do you need to plan a meeting to do that? I'll leave it open to the council. There is a suggested motion to confirm as presented. However, that assumes you like them as presented. So I will leave room for discussion here.
So we just wait a motion to confirm the FY 2025 budget goals as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Is there discussion? Councilor Lombardi.
Yeah, I think that 2 years have gone by since we created those goals. They're good goals, but I think that it might be worthwhile to look at them and consider any changes to them. I would be happy to go to a retreat or a work session to look at them again.
Okay, so we would need a new motion to schedule a work session to review the council goals.
Your Honor, I'd make that motion. Move that the council plan a strategic retreat as we've done in past years.
Is there a
Second.
second? Second. Any further discussion? Councilor Moreau.
I think on top of reviewing the goals, I think we also have to look at accomplishments. And if something, if a goal has actually been completed, I don't believe they have for the record, but I think we have to also look at what has been accomplished and what maybe the priorities are, and maybe put some priorities to that list as well.
Okay, at a time to be determined based upon availability, I'm assuming, of staff or availability of space and counselors. Okay. Any further discussion? Kelly, roll call vote.
Absolutely. Counselor Tabor?
Yes.
Counselor Cook?
Yes.
Counselor Denton?
Yes.
Counselor Blaylock?
Yes.
Counselor Bagley?
Yes.
Counselor Moreau?
Yes.
Counselor Lombardi?
Yes.
Mayor McCachran?
Yes.
It's unanimous. We'll schedule a strategic retreat.
Next up, Your Honor, is a proposed amendment relative to solar panels, and in your packet, you will find a memorandum prepared by Deputy City Attorney Trevor McCourt relative to the consideration initially proposed back in December of 2023 of a proposed ordinance amendment to limit the HDC's review of solar panels. Attorney McCourt is here. I think what can be summarized from his memo and has been heard at public comment is a combination of suggesting that this be referred to the planning board, or a combination of the planning board and the Historic District Commission to discuss. I know the chairs of the two groups have talked, and we're looking to see what the pleasure of the council is at this point.
Councilor Denton.
Thank you, Your Honor. HCC Chair.
Oh, wait, hold on. Do we want to, we're going to put a motion
That's a
on
good idea.
on the table?
I was going to speak, then make a motion.
Okay.
HCC Chair Rudig was absolutely right that a holistic approach should be taken by homeowners to mitigate climate change. First, they should seek to insulate their homes, then they should seek to replace storm windows, and then if it makes sense, they should go ahead and consider solar panels. In 2015, I brought to the HDC the National Renewable Energy Laboratories guidelines on how HDCs should best implement this practice. And essentially, it does just that, except it requires homeowners to first insulate their homes, then do windows, then, if the HDC were to allow solar. However, given the type of state that New Hampshire is, there's not enabling legislation which allows us to require homeowners to first insulate their homes, then do storm windows, then do solar. So with that said, homeowners seeking to mitigate climate change by placing solar arrays on their homes should not be required to go before a review board if it is not required by law. This is not just some simple fashionable thinking. So I motion to refer to the planning board for recommendations, amendments to Chapter 10, Article 6, Section 10.633.20 by adding a new numbered paragraph 28, solar energy panels flush mounted to rooftops of existing structures which do not require other alterations to existing structures, and by adding a new numbered paragraph 29, accessory elements to solar energy panels which do not require other alterations to existing structures.
Second. Just to clarify, that is in opposition to Attorney McCourt's memo?
It's aligned with Attorney McCord's memo, where it's what he recommended verbatim, plus that section, a new paragraph 28, then paragraph 29, something which he stated should be considered, is accessory elements to solar energy panels. So this would make clear, if both were to come back from the planning board, come before us, and pass, that both the solar arrays themselves and the accessory elements to them would not require review by the HDC. So it's to make things as crystal clear as possible, so there's no question, hey, if we just did solar arrays and we did not do accessory elements, what about the accessory elements? But it also gives the council the ability to say, at some point, during second reading or whenever, if other councilors want to just do solar arrays and not do the accessory units, it's simple to do one and not both, but this is to include both be sent to the planning board in accordance with Chairman McCourt's memo.
Counselor, do you have your hand up? Counselor Tabor, then Counselor Lombardi.
Seems we have two ways to go here. We have Councilor Denton's motion, which removes solar panels entirely from the purview of the HDC. And then we have what the city manager has proposed, which is that we refer this to the planning board and the HDC, and I take it as a statement that they would collaborate when you say that the chairs of both have spoken. And they could then come back with recommended language to us, which could include revisions of the solar ordinance, or the solar language the HDC now has. I don't think I can vote for Councilor Denton's motion. I would prefer to send this to the planning board and HDC and hear from them. I think they've been left out of this process. And I can foresee situations where if we remove solar panels entirely from the purview of the HDC, whether it's color or placement or removal of features of a home, we're going to get an either or instead of a both and. And I think we want to get a both and.
So I just want to clarify, Counselor Denton's position was to refer to the planning board.
Correct.
As well. He has, it might be worth, Attorney McCourt is here. Could you, I still think he's here. He was standing there. Now he's sitting.
But that was the motion, correct, Your Honor, to send it to?
It was to send it to the planning board as all change, just as an FYI, all the process for any changing that we would have to the to zoning requires us to send it to the planning board for the recommendation, regardless of whether or not we take that recommendation or not. It is required by all of the ordinances that we have to have it through zoning. Any change has to have the feedback from the planning board. The planning board can easily choose to include, and I would imagine they would, since they've talked about this in broad sense. I believe the chairs have at least to include them in that process. But Attorney McCourt, could you define the differences legally between Councilor Denton's motion and the memo that has been included in the packet this evening?
Yes, thank you, Mayor, members of the City Council. It is a different ordinance, what Councilor Denton is proposing, than what I had drafted. I was merely trying to draft something that I thought affected the will of the council. As I indicated in my memorandum, the City Council has broad authority to regulate what is within and outside of the purview of the Historic District Commission. There is no legal difference in terms of authority between the two ordinances that have been proposed. It's just a difference of which the council prefers. Does the council prefer to have that accessory infrastructure within or outside of the jurisdiction of the Historic District Commission?
Okay. Thank you, Trevor. Yes. Or Attorney McCourt. And is that understood by Councilor Denton to be the distinct difference between the amendment that you've made and the memo that's included in the packet? Or is there something else that's not captured?
The memo the motion which I read is Attorney McCord's motion with the addition of a second paragraph for the accessories to the solar arrays. So it's the same thing. I used the language that was provided in the packet.
That's right.
Yeah. First, Councilor Lombardi, and then Councilor.
Yeah, a statement to make first, and then, well, I'll just do that. When you buy a property in the historic district, you understand that a part of that value of the property belongs to the community. When you make changes to the defining character of a house, such as changing the pattern of windows, removing chimneys, creating an addition that is out of scale, it diminishes the value belonging to the community. When you make changes to the overall streetscape of the historic district, that diminishes the value that belongs to the community. I believe that solar panels could have this effect. That is why I think leaving the design of a solar array on historic houses up to the people selling them is problematic. The Historic District Commission is the only body that has the aesthetic review that can protect that value for the community. Therefore, I would support a collaboration with the HDC, the Planning Board, and the Planning Department to create guidelines for the HDC and Planning Board on this issue. I think that because there is no one in the Planning Department and no one on the Planning Board with experience in architectural historic preservation, it would be important to bring someone in with such background to consult with this process.
Councilor Barty, Councilor Blaylock.
Thank you, Your Honor. I just want to be clear. Councilor Denton's motion was the same language that Attorney McCourt provided us. He just added another line which addresses the hardware that would come off the solar panels. That was all. So we did use the language drafted by Attorney McCourt. I'll say, obviously, I'm the council liaison on the HDC. I've been the one part of these hearings, these applicants. We've had some that have been approved. We have some that haven't. Right now, the HDC stipulates under its guidelines that it shouldn't be viewable from the front of the house. So typically, those that haven't been approved are the ones that have been somewhat visible from the side of the house or a side street or the front of the house. It's been left up to interpretation. Obviously, solar panels have to go on south-facing roofs, obviously being in the northern hemisphere and being as far north as we are. However, the times we are in now with climate change, I mean, I think we've all witnessed the weather we've witnessed this week alone. We've had floods, we've had blizzards, we've had everything in between. I think now is the time to start acting on this climate change. This is a big step, obviously. Obviously, the HDC's been around for a while. I fully think believe the intention of the HDC is to keep our historic fabric, but mainly to prevent structures from being knocked down. That was why it was created when it was created. I do not think it was created so the asphalt shingles on someone's house remain visible and we protect those over making decisions to fight our climate change. I just think the time is now. I think this has become an issue that the council needs to address. And if we all believe in climate change and we all say that that's one of the main subjects that we want to tackle while we're up here, I believe this is one of the ways to do it.
Councilor Bullock, Councilor Moreau.
I just think I would like to have the motion be expanded to actually request that the planning board have a work session with the HDC. I think giving our direction directly to them that that's what we would like the two of them to meet and to discuss this and to get together to give us their best recommendation, I think would be very helpful for us when it comes back to us.
Is that a motion?
I guess if there's support for that.
Okay. Is there a second? Okay, so the motion now on the table is to add in the HDC as a part of or request, since we can't direct the planning board to a part of the review, at least as I understand it. And I would expect, frankly, the planning board to reach out to the HDC on this as a matter of sending it to the planning board because it affects them. I would imagine that this would happen regardless of whether or not this motion passes to do so, but that's noted. We'll go Councilor Cook and then Councilor Bagley, who's on Zoom.
Thank you, Your Honor. I don't believe that this is an either-or situation. I think you can have historic preservation and you can have sustainability goals. And I think that you can achieve sustainability goals without damaging the historic character of your historic neighborhoods. And I say this as a homeowner in the historic district. I'm living in my third historic home. I've restored 2. I'm working on the current one, which needs a lot more love than my last 2 homes. I care deeply about historic preservation, but I also care very deeply about climate change and the issues we're facing around climate change. It was my neighbors whose homes flooded twice last week. And I've sat on the Sustainability Committee for 2 years and worked on the Climate Action Plan. We desperately need to do something about climate issues in Portsmouth and about improving our infrastructure. But solar panels on homes in the historic district is not going to make as big of a difference as people think it is going to make, whereas individuals who live in the historic district right now, today, could go online and opt up to 100% renewable power with community power. If they put solar panels on the top of their homes, it's very likely that they will not have 100% renewable power all the time. Because currently, when you have solar panels on your home, you have to buy your energy from Eversource when your solar panels are not generating enough power for your house. That means that you're only getting a partial percentage of renewable power from Eversource. You're not getting 100%. But right now, you could get 100% from community power. So it's a false argument to say that putting solar panels on your house somehow is better for the environment than just opting up in community power to 100% renewables right now. So I would like to think that homeowners have a choice of putting solar panels on their homes. I think that that's really important. It's an important option for homeowners. But at the same time, we can't make these false arguments about saving the planet by putting solar panels on every historic home in the neighborhood. We already have great options for renewables in the city. And we do need to preserve the historic character of Portsmouth. I chose to live in the historic district. I chose to buy a home in the historic district. Many of my neighbors are in the exact same position as I am, and they want to preserve the historic character of their neighborhood, and they think that they can do that, and at the same time care deeply about the environment and take steps to preserve what we have in the city, and at the same time to recycle, to make a real difference by buying 100% renewable power.
Thank you, Councilor Cook. Going to Councilor Bagley, who is still zooming in. Sorry.
Thank you, Your Honor. Sorry, I got a head cold. I would disagree that solar panels are not something that's going to help the environment. Right now, a large amount of our energy nationwide comes from non-renewable sources. So every solar panel that's added reduces the load. So while it's true you might be able to buy community power, green community power, nothing replaces generating your own green power at your home. I think the homeowner, you should have that right. The other interesting thing I think about this argument is, I mean, we have electric lines that are farther than asphalt shingles, which I don't think are particularly good to look at anyway. In the HDC, we have telephone poles. We have all sorts of modern conveniences in our HDC district. I think my neighbor across the street, who's in the HDC, luckily they were approved. I love seeing that. It means that our community is taking a step against climate change. It means a better future for my daughter. I don't see these as a disadvantage. I see these as an improvement over the asphalt shingles we see today, especially the modern flush-mounted solar panels that are out there. So I would be in favor of this. The one question I have to Councilor Denton's motion, the second part that was added, when you talk about the accessory parts, you mean like a transformer or the cabling or things of that nature. You don't mean solar panels that would be mounted in the yard. Is that correct?
Could you restate the second half of that? You came in garbled.
Oh, sorry. The second part of your motion is just the accessory parts that would go with the solar panels, not solar panels in the yard.
Correct. This is all related to the solar panels on the roof and the accessories that go along with any solar panel on the roof.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Your Honor.
Okay. Councilor Blaylock?
Just one other point. Several residents have reached out, voter age and below voter age. And they asked me a question that kind of had me stumped. They asked me, why do people not like solar panels? Why do they not like seeing solar panels? And it really confounded me. I had to say, I don't know. I don't know why seeing solar panels in a historic district bothers some people. I don't understand that, but I do not feel the same way, and a lot of our residents don't feel the same way.
Okay, I think just in terms of what we're sitting here in the process, what we have before us is do we have a motion to add, do we need a motion based on the conversation to
amend the original
to
motion.
suggest to them that they also, okay, so we'll take that motion first, to suggest that the planning board engage the HDC, knowing that it has no bearing whether or not they will do so or not. And I frankly think they will do so, but can we have a roll call vote on that?
Yes. Yep. Okay. Counselor Tabor?
Yes.
Counselor Cook?
Yes.
Counselor Denton?
Yes.
Counselor Blaylock?
Yes.
Counselor Bagley?
Yes.
Counselor Moreau?
Yes.
Counselor Lombardi?
Yes.
Mayor McCachran?
Yes.
Unanimous.
Okay. The second, and I just want to set the stage further. I think that there is a lot of conviction, in Portsmouth on the effects of climate change. I would say that, coming out of the Connie Bean and seeing a foot of water outside the middle school was eye-opening to me. Is the highest, and we'll hear from Peter under miscellaneous on flooding and how we did with regard to that at the end of tonight. But I think that there is a lot of collective will to act on this. Just from a process standpoint, I think the rest of this conversation could be tabled, not tabled like in a formal sense that we're going to table this, but could wait to hear back the recommendations from the planning board and and maybe the HDC, because they are part of the process in terms of any change. I think we've made our point relatively clear that we want action on this, and we want to break at the very least 4 to 3 votes or 3 to 4 votes, 2 or 4 against on this. So just in the efforts of making sure that we move this to the planning board, which it was originally motioned by Councilor Denton to do, and now that we've voted to also hear from the HDC, I think this allows this process to continue and for us to take a stronger stance when it comes to solar panels, which already just in the conversations with, I believe it was Trevor McCord with the chairman of the planning board, made changes so that you couldn't, knock down a house in the HDC to put up solar panels if it didn't, like tricky things like that. So I think we will get back a better bite at the apple from the efforts of the planning board, the HDC, and we'll be able to have a further discussion on this when we do so. And I think at least originally it was requested at February 5th, but I don't know if we can actually do so.
I was going to suggest, Mayor, that we'll work, I'll help coordinate the work of the planning board in conjunction with HDC and get this back at as reasonable a time as possible, given that the two boards would need to. If
they choose to.
Yep, if they
Okay.
choose to.
All right, can we take, if there's no further comment, can we take a roll call vote on Councilor Denton's motion as amended?
Counselor Tabor?
Yes.
Counselor Cook?
Yes.
Counselor Denton?
Yes.
Counselor Blaylock?
Yes.
Counselor Bagley?
Yes.
Counselor Moreau?
Yes.
Counselor Lombardi?
Yes.
Mayor McCachran?
Yes.
Unanimous.
Item number 3 is a request that the City Council adopt legislative principles for legislative positions. These before you in the packet were adopted by the previous council, and the idea is that in the interest of expediency, given that the legislature is back in session, we would suggest that council re-adopt these policies, as it will allow the city to continue to be proactive and have a voice on matters until such time as the legislative subcommittee can meet in this new council and form any changes to these policies.
Your Honor, I'd move that the council adopt the legislative principles as shown in the packet.
Second.
Okay, yep. And legislative subcommittee's procedures for submission of testimony as presented.
And also the legislative procedures.
Second.
Any discussion? All right, we'll take a roll call vote. As always, these can be changed as the year goes on, if anybody has feelings to for or against.
Counselor Tabor?
Yes.
Counselor Cook?
Yes.
Counselor Denton?
Yes.
Counselor Blaylock?
Yes.
Counselor Bagley?
Yes.
Counselor Moreau?
Yes.
Counselor Lombardi?
Yes.
Mayor McEachran?
Yes.
Unanimous?
Thank you. Item number 4 is a request for a revocable license for Arcadis US Incorporated for property located at 124 Bartlett Street. The owner of record of that property is Industrial Rents LLC. There are monitoring wells on site to assess water quality, which are coordinated by our Department of Public Works and the state of New Hampshire. And they have determined that installing 2 additional monitoring wells near the site will supplement the existing monitoring wells and provide data regarding environmental impacts to the site. And the licensee, Arcadis, is requesting the city's permission to locate these 2 monitoring wells in the city's right-of-way. And those locations are depicted in blue dots in the plan in your packet. And because these wells will be located under a city sidewalk and a city right-of-way, a license from the city is required to install, maintain, and access the wells for sampling.
Wait, a motion to authorize the city manager to negotiate, execute, and deliver a revocable license in a form similar to the attached to allow Arcadis to install monitoring wells to benefit property located at 124 Bartlett Street.
So moved.
Second.
Is there any discussion? We will have this as a roll call vote.
Counselor Tabor?
Yes.
Counselor Cook?
Yes.
Counselor Denton?
Yes.
Counselor Blaylock?
Yes.
Counselor Bagley?
Yes.
Counselor Moreau?
Yes.
Counselor Lombardi?
Yes.
Mayor McEachran?
Yes.
Unanimous?
Thank you. And item 5, and my last item, would be that the council and the planning board hold a joint listening session as a follow-up to the work conducted, which kicked off last Thursday with Portsmouth Listens as part of our Housing Navigator work. This would be known as a Places to Live Study Circle Dialogue Report Out. And as many of you participated, there was fantastic turnout last Thursday. There are over 160 people signed up to participate in 12 study circles. And it is expected that this joint listening session that is being requested will take about an hour. We'll also preview recommendations and strategies of the dialogue effort to improve housing choices. Our housing navigator, Howard Snyder's here, just to elaborate on that briefly, if you don't mind, Howard.
Just briefly. I was last here in December to inform the council of the Places to Live dialogue that was being undertaken by Portsmouth Listens in support with the city. That outreach effort was successful. As the city manager mentioned, we had a great turnout last Thursday. And we're now in the process of engagement. That engagement effort started on Thursday. There's a 4-week, 4-session effort that's underway, and the findings and input from the 160 citizens that are volunteering their time will be in the form of a report out, both verbally to this requested joint session, a listening session of the City Council and Planning Board, as well as a written report. There will be an effort to limit the input from each group to 4 slides, no more than 5 minutes, given the fact that we actually have right now 14 study circle groups.
So just as in closing, the date of Thursday, February 22nd was chosen because that is the second meeting of the planning board on any given month. So they have a plan to meet as an alternative meeting. And if it were amenable to the council, that would be when this would be held, Thursday, February 22nd at 6 p.m. in council chambers.
Thank you, Howard. I'd wait a motion to establish a joint listening session with the planning board on Thursday, February 22nd, 2024 at 6 p.m. in city council chambers.
So move.
Move.
Second.
Any discussion? Look forward to it. Thank you again, Howard.
Thank you very much.
Roll call.
Ready for the roll call.
Counselor Tabor?
Yes.
Counselor Cook?
Yes.
Counselor Denton?
Yes.
Counselor Blaylock?
Yes.
Counselor Bagley?
Yes.
Counselor Moreau?
Yes.
Counselor Lombardi?
Yes.
Mayor McCackron?
Yes.
Unanimous.
Thank you.
Next up, I'd wait a motion to adopt the consent agenda as presented.
So moved.
Second?
And when Kelly is ready, a roll call vote.
Yep. Just gotta switch over this. Counselor Tabor?
Yes.
Counselor Cook?
Yes.
Counselor Denton?
Yes.
Counselor Blaylock?
Yes.
Counselor Bagley?
Yes.
Counselor Moreau?
Yes.
Counselor Lombardi?
Yes.
Mayor McCackron?
Yes.
Unanimous.
All right. Thank you, Kelly. We now have under presentations and written communications, the community policing facility update. Suzanne Woodland, Deputy City Manager, Peter Rice, our Public Works Director, and Mark Newport, our Chief of Police.
I believe it's the chief and Peter with Suzanne as backup, and we have a
It's
presentation.
waiting in the wings there. All right. Police of backup.
Good evening, Your Honor and Council. We're here just to give you an update of where we are with our community policing facility. As you can see in the slides here, we feel there's desire by the council. We've heard the message loud and clear that we'd like to focus on having the facility on the community campus here. We've been racking our heads and trying to come up with ideas on how we can make that possible. Sitting in our conference room, the police station, looking out the window, epiphany came upon me, looking out the window, that maybe an idea is we can go out in front of the police station. So we are going to bring that proposal to you to move forward and look at that idea to see if that's a comparable solution with the priority of staying within the budget that we've had approved and looking at the priority of trying to stay here on the campus. We feel that that location may be a better location than the lower lot. Speaking on it, I'm not really sure why we didn't come up with it earlier, but better late than never. So we think looking at that idea and maybe using some of the current facility that we have renovated, that we could get the costs down and get what we need and also get what the community needs and keeping it at an affordable cost. What we've done in the last year as we refined our programming, we've reduced the square footage by 31%, down to 49,458 square feet. We initially started at 72,000. So look at that as, we really looked at from the beginning what our wants were and getting down to where we're at now as we're at what our necessities and needs are. I think looking at the structure outside the current facility, this is something that can be done, but we'll have to move forward with more geotech work, and Peter can talk more on the building side of it, but at this point of where we are now, we think this is a realistic opportunity that we should at least scratch the surface of and see if it's something that we continue to move forward with. And as I stated before, we look at using some of our current space. We feel that the needed square footage that we have is enough space out in front of the building to build a new structure, maybe attach it to our current facility, and with some of the remaining space in our side of our building, that we would be able to accomplish our goal of a modern community policing facility. This will allow us to provide an updated budget and see if it's something that is realistic and feasible.
Thank you, Chief.
Any questions? Any
Any
opinions?
questions?
I can screw it. So at this point, we believe this is a really good opportunity for us to explore further and optimistically feel that this is really going to provide a great space of reduced costs and really provide some of or meet the goals that you all set out at our work session. And so this is really more of a information that this is the direction we're going to be going in. We're looking at coming back in April to do another work session to further refine where we're going. But, you know, we, as the chief said, it was very clear from your feedback and from the commission's feedback that we need to build a facility that meets the city's needs. We need to do it within the budget that was previously laid out, and we need to try to accomplish it here at this site. So we think that this is a good, viable option to pursue. And, you know, obviously we need to do the legwork to be able to truth it out, to make sure it works. But at this point, we feel pretty enthusiastic about this option, and hopefully, you know, in the near future can flesh it out a little bit better to answer any concerns or questions you all may have.
And just to add to that, we are still going to continue forward with the Granite Street site, moving forward with that as well as a comparison.
Councilor Cook and then Councilor Denton.
I think so.
Okay.
Thank you, Your Honor. I just have a question about how far down the hill you're looking, just because I know South Mill Pond has been struggling with some flooding.
Yeah, so we've been in communication with Peter Britz and his staff relative to how far away how close we can get. We don't anticipate really pushing much more than the existing roadway. Okay. But really, we need to do some basic enabling engineering to be able to definitively say that. Our understanding, you know, there's a 100-foot setback, but there is an ability to build other things within a closer area, such as stormwater treatment, a patio area, some amenities for the residents to be able to appreciate the area, and we could still work in that area. So we'd need to flesh that out as part of the design.
Councilor Denton?
My question of where was just answered.
Okay. Yep, going out that way, right? Okay.
Yes.
Going towards Junkins.
Towards Junkins. Got it. Councilor Boyle.
Thank you. I just want to say I appreciate that we're looking at staying in the parameters of the budget constraints that were put in the CIP and that we have planned on. I know that was, at least I was losing sleep over that, so thank you.
Councilor Tabor?
Yeah, I would add, in the working group came to the conclusion, or I think it became clear to us, probably the only way to get to the budget is this approach, because of the ability to use the shooting range in place, just modernize it, the maintenance facility in place, just modernize it, use portions of the existing building, and we can dial up or dial down how much of the existing building we use, which gives us flexibility to get our costs in line. And, you know, we don't have to replace a ball field. So I think it's good to have Granite Street still as a green field comparison, but I don't see how there's any other way to come to the cost number that we all want to see this at without going this route. In fact, it's kind of a breakthrough.
Councilor Lombardi?
So you're going out out the front basically more. Is there any discussion of going up a floor too, or is that not
I
necessary?
think through this, we'll figure all of that out.
Okay.
When we see how much space we have out in front. One of the other big cost savings of this is that we will be able to stay in our current facility while we'd be building the section in front, so we would be saving a lot of money of not having to move. Or we could move into, say, the new structure and then renovate the back half of where we're at now. So that's a significant savings.
Councilor Cook?
Thank you, Your Honor. Sorry to have a second question here. Does this mean that you're probably looking at upgrading the current HVAC system as part of this?
We're anticipating that the new addition or the new building would have its own separate HVAC system. There are sections, obviously, that need to be improved in the existing, if we maintain some of the existing functions, and that would be part of the whole design process.
City Manager.
We went real quickly through the slides, but I want to reiterate on the next steps and last slide. The goal tonight was to get a sense of whether the council thought this was a good idea to pursue, so that we can then spend some time and energy and resources with the consultant and bring back in the form of a work session in the April timeframe what we learned. So tonight was a gauging and a temperature taking of this group for that effort.
Yeah, I think that we don't need a vote or a motion on this. I don't see anybody disagreeing to working out a solution that might come within the appropriated budget. That seems to be aligned thus far. Couple questions that I had. One, from a timing perspective, April, where did we come up with? Is that the consultant's bandwidth?
I think in speaking with the consultants, they said they think that would give them enough time to be able to give us enough data to.
Two, when we say continuing on with Granite Street, it means kind of having Granite Street continue on as the work that we've put into Granite Street, or will additional work also be needed on Granite Street in terms of funding in order to bring that up to a comparison? Like, we've done enough on Granite Street that we have a comparison, or do we need more?
We have a pretty good handle on what Granite Street, it would be really just refining some of the costs, looking closer at the replacement of the ball field to make sure that, the number that we were carrying was accurate or within, reasonable ballpark, so
Okay.
to speak.
And then lastly, and I don't know if this is shared by the rest of the council, but I will have questions on April, again, around the IBC4 designation. Want to make, since there's such an additional cost, as I understand, with the International Building Code section or rating 4 for a building, I want it really clear to understand, why that one is necessary, and two, when we think about these things in terms of, basically, those structures that exceed the end of the world, what is, is there a regional path that we could be taking instead of creating a IBC4 building when it comes to the police station?
Sure.
All right.
Thank you.
All right, next up, letter from Mike Como, Portsmouth Water Taxi, requesting permission to attach sign to the chain link fence next to the public docks ramp. Also placement of sandwich board sign on the dock. I'd wait a motion to refer this request to the city legals department for a report back.
So moved.
Second. Any discussion? Seeing none, we will have Kelly take the roll.
Counselor Tabor?
Yes.
Counselor Cook?
Yes.
Counselor Dutton?
Yes.
Counselor Blaylock?
Yes.
Counselor Bagley?
Yes.
Counselor Moreau?
Yes.
Counselor Lombardi?
Yes.
Mayor McCackern?
Yes.
Unanimous.
Next up, a letter from Marcia McCormick regarding appeal to eliminate the waterfront business designation from Salter Street. I'd wait a motion to refer this request to the city's legal department for a report back.
So moved.
Second. Any discussion? We will hear what legal has to say. Kelly, will you please take the roll?
Yes, Mayor. Counselor Tabor?
Yes.
Counselor Cook?
Yes.
Counselor Denton?
Yes.
Counselor Blaylock?
Yes.
Counselor Bagley?
Yes.
Counselor Moreau?
Yes.
Counselor Lombardi?
Yes.
Mayor McCackern?
Yes.
Unanimous.
Next up, sample motion on email correspondent would be to move to accept and place on file.
So moved.
Second.
Counselor Tabor?
Yes.
Counselor Cook?
Yes.
Counselor Denton?
Yes.
Counselor Blaylock?
Yes.
Counselor Bagley?
Yes.
Counselor Moreau?
Yes.
Counsel Lombardi,
Yes.
Mayor McEachran.
Yes.
Unanimous.
Next, request for public hearing pursuant to RSA 673, Section 13, for the removal of Mr. James Hewitt from the Planning Board. I'd wait a motion to schedule a public hearing February 5th, 2024 City Council meeting to determine if Mr. James Hewitt should be removed from the Planning Board pursuant to RSA 673, Section 13.
So moved.
Second.
Attorney Morel, is there any more clarity you can offer outside of the memo that was presented?
So I think everybody has questions about process. This is the first step in a process. So what was presented to you was for you to make an informed decision in regards to whether you believe a public hearing is an appropriate step to take. The statutes regarding land use board members, the 67313 that's noted in the memo, provides a very thumbnail sketch of the process, just a public hearing by the appointing authority and written findings, at which time, if you make such written findings, you may remove the member from the board. It's not a mandatory, it's a may. So the process, if you were to choose to go forward with a public hearing, would include specific due process to Mr. Hewitt in terms of notice in more detail than what is in the current memo and the attachments in regards to the issues that would be presented at this public hearing. It's a hearing in the public. It's not a opportunity for public comment. It's not that type of a hearing. It's a hearing specific to the issue at hand for the city council to determine whether or not there has been either malfeasance in office or neglect of duty under the statute. So there would be a presentation in regards to documentation from the legal department, and then an opportunity for Mr. Hewitt to present information to the city council. And there's an opportunity for witnesses potentially and to be questioned and cross-examined. It's not a trial, but it will take a form like that in the ability to provide notice to Mr. Hewitt and in an opportunity to provide further due process, which is an opportunity to be heard, and to address the issues being presented to the city council. And then when that hearing is over, the city council will have to take a vote in regards to their findings of fact. And then if there is a vote finding that there has cause for removal from office, you would then have to take a vote to determine if that's what you want to do. Or if you want to take some other action. It would be within your discretion to act at that point. So that is the process I see that is laid out very generally just by saying there's a public hearing. There's examples throughout the case law and others settings in terms of removal of a city council member or other public officials. There's not a lot of examples specifically as to the process other than going through basic Robert's rules and in a presentation in a structured fashion of information, and then allowing the city council to deliberate and make decisions. So February 5th might be too ambitious to accomplish all of that fairly with opportunity for both Mr. Hewitt and for the city. And so there's potentially, maybe it might be better for a special meeting set aside from your agenda for February 5th, but that's also something for you to decide tonight, if you want to schedule it for 3 weeks from now, or if you want to find another date after February 5th, but not too far in the future. Happy to answer any questions you might have.
Councilor Denton.
2 questions. The first one is, if there's cross-examination, someone would be asking questions. Who would be asking the questions?
Right now, I would foresee myself asking questions of certain individuals, and Mr. Hewitt would also, or his attorney, if he is going to be represented by counsel or represented by another individual. It's not a trial. This is not a courtroom. He doesn't need to have counsel, legal counsel, but apparently, based on earlier public comment, it appears that he does have counsel. So then that counsel would be asking questions.
And second question, given our role in this process, can we discuss this with other people? Should we not discuss this with other people? Can you give us guidance on that?
It's my recommendation that you not discuss this with other people, and that you keep an open mind and wait and hear what information is presented to you at this public hearing, should you choose to have one.
Thank you.
Technical question. If you're asking questions of Mr. Hewitt, who is our legal counsel in this matter?
I'm going to recommend that the council seek outside counsel advice, and not that going to reach out to a couple of local municipal attorneys and see if they will provide those services without an extensive fee or any fee at all. So I'm working on that.
Councilor Tabor.
This obviously takes us into some untrodden ground, but I do know that, having chaired the ethics committee when we had a complaint and possible removal of a counselor, we just felt it was really important, and Attorney Sullivan at the time guided us to have full due process. And a full due process meaning start with all the evidence submitted, so that Mr. Hewitt sees all the evidence and his attorney sees all the evidence. And then there's a presentation of fact. And then Mr. Hewitt can cross-examine or question any of the documents. And if there are any witnesses, he can cross-examine the witnesses. Or his attorney can do that. And I think he absolutely should be able to have an attorney. And Mr. Hewitt in turn can be cross-examined. And final statements by everybody. And we were faced with a process that it had never had to occur before, but we found that all the evidence noticed, fully disclosed, the ability to call witnesses, the ability of the defendant to have his own attorney and to cross-examine and to make final statements, all, ensured that it was as fair as we could make it.
That was a statement. Any thoughts on how that affects
I'm in
process?
full agreement with Councilor Tabor that would be the process that we would strive for, and that's why I think maybe 3 weeks from now might not be quite enough time. You might want to give everybody another week or so to get that all accomplished.
So what date would that be? We have, when's the next, seems like we should do this outside of another meeting.
Perhaps the subsequent Monday, February 12th, we could find out if the room is available. It's not a council meeting night, but it is a Monday.
Okay.
I'll amend my motion to state February 12th. Second. Is okay with it?
Yes. Couldn't remember if I seconded.
Any further discussion? Kelly, please take the roll.
Okay. Counselor Tabor?
Yes.
Counselor Cook?
Yes.
Counselor Denton?
No.
Counselor Blaylock?
Yes.
Counselor Bagley?
No.
Counselor Moreau?
Yes.
Counselor Lombardi?
Yes.
Mayor McCackron?
Yes.
Motion passes 6-2.
Next up, our Ethics Committee drawing by lot.
Yep. Who would like to draw, the mayor or the city manager or the city attorney?
Gosh. City manager.
City manager.
Is Counselor Denton?
Again.
Again.
Not all Counselor Denton. I hope.
Last year.
They all had your name on.
Next up, approval of City Council rules and orders. We had a motion to approve the City Council rules and orders.
So moved.
Second?
Are there any amendments to the rules and orders?
Your Honor, I would move to amend Rule 30 as it proposed in the memorandum from the Deputy City Manager. If I can get a second.
Second.
Thank you. This amendment to Rule 30 is basically a change in when the council can make amendments during ordinance proceedings. So it would allow the council to make amendments at first reading so that those amendments can be in place before second reading, and that allows the public the opportunity to comment on an amended ordinance rather than having public comment on the hearing and then amending it and then returning again. So it makes the process much more efficient.
Saved us a lot of time, or would have last term. Any
Yes.
further discussion? Kelly, can you please take a roll call vote?
So this will be on
The
Counselor
amendment-
Cook's amendment first. Yep. Okay. Counselor Tabor?
Yes.
Counselor Cook?
Yes.
Counselor Denton?
Yes.
Counselor Blaylock?
Yes.
Counselor Bagley?
Yes.
Counselor Moreau?
Yes.
Counselor Lombardi?
Yes.
Mayor McCackron?
Yes.
Unanimous. Okay, so now do you want roll call?
Any other amendments on rules or orders? Yeah, we'll have the roll call on the rest of them.
Okay. Counselor Tabor?
Yes.
Counselor Cook?
Yes.
Counselor Denton?
Yes.
Counselor Blaylock?
Yes.
Counselor Bagley?
Yes.
Counselor Moreau?
Yes.
Counselor Lombardi?
Yes.
Mayor McCackron?
Yes.
Unanimous.
Next up is the ratification of City Council policies. I'd await a motion to adopt them as presented.
So moved.
Second?
Any changes or amendments? Seeing none, Kelly, can we have a roll call vote on the City Council policies?
Yes. 3. Counselor Tabor?
Yes.
Counselor Cook?
Yes.
Counselor Denton?
Yes.
Counselor Blaylock?
Yes.
Counselor Bagley?
Yes.
Council Moreau,
Yes.
Council Lombardi,
Yes.
Mayor McCackron.
Yes.
Unanimous.
Now, on the ratification of Blue Ribbon Committees, Kelly, can we ratify these as they appear without going and listing every individual one and just move to ratify the Blue Ribbon Committees as presented?
Yes.
Wait a motion to ratify the Blue Ribbon Committees as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Council Lombardi?
Yes, I'd like to remove two people from the Archive Committee, Tom Watson and Susan Sterry.
Happened here?
Did not opt to continue on the committee.
Okay. And that's because they are listed in the packet?
Yes.
Okay, and then, could you also, I think there's two on the Citywide Neighborhood Committee that might be
Yes.
Elaine and Lori
Lori.
Soloway.
That's correct.
Can you also just include in your memo to remove them, so we just have one vote?
Yes.
Great.
Your Honor, I'm not, last I spoke to Elaine, she was going to reapply. Have we received an application?
To,
Citywide neighborhoods.
she sent an email today, she's resigning.
Okay.
So didn't get her, John, all the more reason we need those
I tried my
winners of the neighborhood lights. So it's to ratification of Blue Ribbon Committees with the removal of those, the Housing Committee will require to be applications submitted for that Blue Ribbon Committee, which will be posted, and we will need applications from 7 to 9 members, as it currently states in that committee, and we will look to appoint those at the next council meeting.
Okay.
So we will have a roll call vote when you're ready, Kelly.
Okay. Counselor Tabor,
Yes.
Counselor Cook,
Yes.
Counselor Denton,
Yes.
Counselor Blaylock.
Yes.
Counselor Bagley,
Yes.
Counselor Moreau,
Yes.
Counselor Lombardi,
Yes.
Mayor McCackron.
Yes.
Unanimous.
And we have the reappointments to the Rockingham County Planning Commission of Beth Moreau as our city council representative, and Peter Britz as a Planning and Sustainability Director, alternate member.
I'll recuse from the vote.
All right. We will have, regardless of that statement, we will have a roll call vote.
Need a
If I
motion.
get a motion, obviously, for those appointments.
So moved.
Second.
Counselor Tabor,
Yes.
Counselor Cook,
Yes.
Counselor Denton,
Yes.
Counselor Blaylock,
Yes.
Counselor Bagley,
Yes.
Counselor Moreau,
Recuse.
thank you, Counselor Lombardi,
Yes.
Mayor McCackron.
Yes.
Motion passes with one recusal.
These are appointments to be considered, not voted on. Donald Brambert as a regular member of the Audit Committee, Jeff Abrams as the regular member of the Cable and Broadband Internet Commission, Gary Lowe as a regular member of the Cable Broadband Internet Commission, Talia Sperduto as an alternate member of the Conservation Committee, and Joni Record, reappointment as an alternate member of the Zoning Board of Adjustment. And will come before you at the next council meeting. We are now on to City Council member agenda without the Assistant Mayor. Councilor Tabor, speaking for both.
Thanks, Your Honor. Well, we've created a housing committee by the vote we just took. When the packet was put together last week, I put forward two thoughts on how we can proceed on the opportunity at Sherburne. The first was if the housing authority, or if we put this into the program of work of a housing committee. When I spoke with the assistant mayor, and Councilor Moreau, maybe you can give detail too, she felt that we would be wise to not reappoint the land use committee. It had done a lot of good work, but there should be a housing committee instead, more focused on implementation. And so I outlined that to you in the narrative in the packet. The benefits of a housing committee would be we could have both counselors and citizens. We could have citizens from each of the wards so that their voices would be in the process. We could then look at a whole program of work around housing. To my mind, we could have quantifiable goals of the expansion of the housing stock that we wanted to achieve, especially below market rate housing. We could do not just one project with PHA, we could hopefully look to do more. And then what are the strategies that we would implement? And the housing committee would hopefully come to the council with action to take. And that could be recommendations from the housing navigator, put in a form that the council could vote. That could be zoning changes. That could be things that are financial as opposed to land use, tax incentives, housing trust fund. So it's clear that this is a major objective for our council, and our hope was, when Assistant Mayor Kelly and I spoke, we'd have a committee that could spearhead that work, and last but not least, help develop the housing element of the master plan. So that was what we put forward to you, and sounds like it's already done. We would come back to you in February with appointees and a mission and goals, and we would want to make sure that we get residents from the neighborhoods who can be a voice to help guide us, and at the same time, we know that this is a committee that wants to move forward, take action, not, for example, relitigate the choice of where workforce housing should go, because I think the Land Use Committee has already done that. They've already assessed all of the city sites and scored the Sherburne site as the best. So that's how we ended up.
Councilor Tabor? Councilor Denton, is that just a restful hand? Okay, I think the making sure that there is both engagement from the neighborhood and the previous housing committee, which we had I think it was in 2016, or maybe it was under Tom Farini. It was a while.
2016, 2018 that Councilor Perkins was on.
But there was one before with Mayor Farini, I do
Yes.
believe, as well. And that was basically defining from a economic development. There was members of the economic development, business community, assessors. I think we should try to draw strength from, of those committee appointments, areas where that exists. But I don't think we're going to need to make the case from the EDC, for example, that housing is necessary or required for business. I would agree, the land use, in particular, because, as representatives of the PHA, and WOW did a great job on there, if we were going to work with the PHA, the housing committee has to be separate from that as well. And then finally, the making sure that, there is the understanding that of the Sherburne site being suitable for housing. We also have to understand that a committee is going to be more than simply Sherburne and Panaway residents, but I want to make sure that they are represented on that committee so that they're engaged in that process going forward, making sure that we are, we could certainly, once we move further down that process, include more, but to make sure that they are included in the process from a high-level housing standpoint. Councilor Cook.
Thank you, Your Honor. I think it's a very good idea to move forward with discussing all the options on housing and having a committee do that. The one caveat I would provide is that I think that it will be counterproductive if the committee debates options for 6 to 7 months, especially things around zoning, than to bring them forward and then have them go to the planning board for 6 to 7 months or a year. So I think we need to be very mindful of how much time is spent on each potential solution so that we move expediently.
I think that we're not great at moving fast, but the point is definitely noted. I think what we're fortunate to have, and where we did not have at any other council year, is a focus on housing as directly as we do in a master plan year. The master plan is going to, and that's not really our process. We can affect that as much as we can affect and engage with the planning board. One of the readouts is, great that we'll be listening to that with the planning board, but to make sure that we have a position that is supported by the committee when we go towards the planning board will be important.
And Your Honor, other criticism or constructive criticism, the assistant mayor and I welcome. We're building this for the first time, so the more insights that we have from each of you, the better it's going to be. I, for instance, am trying to figure out how we get the land use expertise on this committee that we need, which you have, Councilor Moreau. A lot of what we have to do to generate affordable housing, given New Hampshire, is do conditional use permits and trade off with developers. Should we have somebody from the private sector who will say that will work or that won't work? So those are some thoughts that I'd love your input on.
Well, I think, so just, Councilor Cook did and we see that Andrew Bagley, or Councilor Bagley has his hand up, so I'll go to him. Councilor Cook put a lot of work in terms of this selection, both with the Arts and Cultural Commission that went from the previous subcommittee to make sure that that is defined and well-rounded and thought of a lot of aspects that I do believe that there will be equally rigorous, especially since we've already had some folks reach out with interest to do so to the entire council, that we had the housing listening navigator session. I do hope that based on that, we will have people that are able to step up from that to provide those creative solutions. Councilor Bagley.
Thank you, Your Honor. I would echo Councilor Cook's, let's move quicker rather than slower. One technical piece of data that I think is important, that I think the Housing Committee should consider, is I would be much more in favor of a lease where the land is returned to the city after a period of 40, 50, 60 years, what have you. Land is the one thing in housing that's you can't create more of. So I would much prefer to see a situation where the land reverts back to the city, probably long after our lifetimes, but at some point in the future, the city would have the choice to do something with the land again. So if that could be taken under consideration by the committee, I'd appreciate it.
I think that, again, would be a great opportunity to refer something to the Blue Ribbon Committee for a report back on the type of structure from a lease standpoint. Obviously, we could also direct the committee to take a position from the council, but that's a good point. Your Honor. Councilor Bullock.
Thank you, Your Honor. I'll echo Councilor Bagley's point. I always anticipated that we would give a 50 or 100-year lease for a very small monetary amount. Then we wouldn't be giving away land, as I know some residents have been concerned. But I am hopeful that we move this process forward. I know my neighborhood's very anxious to be part of the conversation, but they're anxious to get involved. So I'm glad they're moving this forward.
Thanks, Councilor Bullock. There's no actual motion here. I don't think. Is there a motion? No.
we were going to come back to you with a list of nominees and a statement, but we've already voted to have a housing committee, so the work is done.
Perfect. Well, the work is not done. The work is,
No.
we got to get the nominees.
All you have is the co-chairs. So.
All right, next up, Councilor Blaylock.
Thank you, Honor. So as all you know, I was not here last month. I was away. It was not just a vacation trip. I also was doing some work on behalf of the city of Portsmouth. I had the pleasure of meeting with the mayor of Nelson, New Zealand, Nick Smith. He was actually a member of parliament before he was mayor of Nelson. We met discussing a potential sister city relationship or friendship city relationship. Portsmouth is essentially, Nelson, is essentially the Portsmouth of the Southern Hemisphere. I've been there 4 times myself. I've done a lot of traveling, especially around the Southern Hemisphere. I noticed we did not have a sister city or friendship city in the Southern Hemisphere. Once me and the mayor got talking, he expressed interest in it and seemed that their community would be interested in such a relationship. So they invited me to present to their council. So I actually presented to the Nelson City Council while I was over there. They have the king and everything presided. It's a little different format than we do over here. But just to give you a little feel for Nelson, it's very similar in form and function. They're very similar in size. They are a port at the mouth of a river. They're a lot younger than, they were settled 700 years ago by their indigenous peoples, the Maori, but they were only visited by the English 150 years ago. So their history is a little different than ours. Their mayor called it the last bus stop on Earth, which I thought was a nice way of phrasing it. They celebrate the arts. They have a lot of restaurants, shops, and a working port. After talking with the mayor, I also discovered that their top 3 main issues were very similar to ours. Their main issues that they're tackling over there are cost of living increases, affordable housing for people that live there and work there, and climate change. And I figured, well, if we're trying to solve the same problems on the other side of the earth, why don't we collaborate? Considering we're both trying to solve the same issues. But I figured any relationship couldn't hurt, or at least exploring this relationship. I know sister cities were originally formed to prevent war. I'm not worried about that in this situation. If a friendship city was the more appropriate level of engagement, they expressed interest in possibly setting up some sort of student exchange program in the future, and they would actually contribute some monetary contribution to the relationship. And they also gave me a gift. I'll just kind of show the camera here. It was just kind of their native shells and ceramics. They have some scallop, and they have green shelled mussels over there that they're very fond of. But just wanted to try to get this started and see if there was something to be had. They expressed interest. I know they're having a meeting next month. So I'd like to move to refer a potential sister city or friendship city relationship to the Blue Ribbon Committee and report back to the City Council.
Second.
Any more discussion? Look forward to finding out we can become a sister city in the Southern Hemisphere with second.
I'll just add, New Zealand is, they have a large control of the world's oceans. It's deemed on your coastline, and their coastline is 1% less than the United States of America. So given all their islands they have, they actually are in control of the same proportion of the world's oceans that we are. And given that being the Southern Hemisphere, that's quite a big part of the world. So yeah.
Impressive. All right. Well, look forward to that educational trip down to Nelson. Thank you, Councilor Blaylock. Can we have a roll call vote on this?
Yes, ma'am. Councilor Tabor?
Yes.
Councilor Cook?
Yes.
Councilor Denton?
Yes.
Councilor Blaylock?
Yes.
Councilor Bagley?
Yes.
Councilor Moreau?
Yes.
Councilor Lombardi?
Yes.
Mayor McCackry?
Yes.
Unanimous.
And with that, we will take a 7-minute recess for. All right.
I don't mind.
I heard.
All right, welcome back. We are going to Councillor Cook, and Councillor Bagley is no longer on the Zoom this evening. Get some rest.
Thank you, Your Honor. I'm going to move forward. I think I have Councillor Bagley's permission to move forward with this. I move to request a report back from the city manager on the possibility of an SMS or email triggered notice system based on sign up by keyword to alert residents of topics of interest on any public meeting agenda to drive increased resident participation and attendance at city meetings.
Second.
I was actually approached by a resident who'd done quite a bit of research on this topic, and some cities, notable examples, Pueblo, Colorado, use a technology tool that allows them to have, it's an automated customer interaction software program, and it's basically a trigger communication either through email or text. You can choose which one, or the city can choose which one they want to support. For a keyword. So an individual would go in online and sign up and say, I want to know whenever anybody in the city is discussing affordable housing. And so they'd sign up by keyword, and then that keyword would trigger a text notice or an email notice if that comes up on the agenda of not just like a city council meeting, but any agenda, say, that was posted online. So really, we're just wanting a request for a report back on the possibility of doing this, because I know that technically this could be a bit challenging. I don't know how well our systems would integrate with this, and so we're wanting to explore that possibility, and it's my understanding that the city has done some exploration of this already. So that's more formalizing this process.
Sounds like a great idea. And there's a second. There was a Councillor Moreau. Any other discussion? Obviously, opt-in.
Yes.
Great. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
That's right, we can do that now.
Yeah, I know. Well, all right. Next up, so Councillor Bagley, we're going to move his agenda to the next meeting. Councillor Moreau.
Thank you. In an effort to try to just wrap up the items that the Land Use Committee had been working on, number one is my sample motion moved to request that an ordinance amendment be drafted to change the zoning of the consensus properties as described in the memorandum, and that the drafted ordinance amendment be sent to the Planning Board for its consideration and recommendation in February, with the intention of bringing back the ordinance amendment for first reading at City Council meeting in March.
Second.
And that is, we actually started with close to 60 properties, as you'll see from the list. We pared that down and then added a few in. Most of the properties we're putting in the G1. There was one property we put in the G2, and then Oriental Gardens, as we came across it and realized it was in office research, made no sense. So we wanted to put that actually in Garden Apartment Mobile Home, which, since that is a mobile home park, it'll actually make it easier for them to replace mobile homes when, like, they burned down recently. They have a lot of trouble doing that because of the district that it's in. So we're just trying to correct that and help out those residents there. But the rest are what we felt like properties, when you take a look at all the surrounding properties around them, really made sense to be able to expand the options of what can be done on these properties as far as being residences and businesses and mixed use. And the Gateway District really does that. It's been successful so far at promoting some of this, and we wanted to be able to promote it further.
So consensus properties means that everybody agrees that this should be changed.
Yep. On the committee, yep.
On the committee. Okay. Councillor Blaylock.
Yeah, I'll just state, we looked at all the properties that were adjacent to current Gateway 1 or Gateway 2 and evaluated whether they should be added to the Gateway 1 or Gateway 2. All the changes made were to allow more for the property owner. It would really be housing or a business. I think the properties changed. Their properties are probably going to go up in value because they can do more. They're allowed to do more stuff now. But the idea was to create more opportunities for housing, obviously, or eliminate where it is not possible.
Councilor Moreau.
just to correct the one thing you said, their value will go up if they take advantage of the new zoning. It doesn't technically cause it to go up just because we changed the zoning. I didn't want people to get scared hearing that.
Thank you for clarifying.
Counselor Cook.
Thank you, Your Honor. I just wanted to commend the committee for their work on this. This was long overdue. And there are some areas that are, like Commercial Way, that it's really clear that we've needed to think about zoning changes for quite some time. So thank you so much for doing this work.
Yeah, we're further taking a look, or at least I've asked the planning staff to really look at, after we make these changes, what's really left in like the general business district that we don't really use anymore. And does it make sense, maybe we need to actually clean up and get rid of some of the older zoning districts that we don't use because we have changed to gateway and character districts.
Good point.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Back to Councilor Moreau.
All right, and the second item that we had been taking a look at for a little while is we had been requested by this council, or the last council, to be able to look at adding in more ability for home occupations. And we took a look at several other different cities, and I actually came up with a new 2-page definition that was being reviewed. And in speaking with staff, this is where we thought we should really talk about where we go from here on this. So the same motion is to move to request a report back from the city manager on how we might continue to advance the discussion during the next city council session, recognizing and balancing the city council priorities such as housing, other ordinance amendments that are already further along in the development process, and staff workload. If we get a second. I think that this could be moved along, and possibly we just really need to figure out whether or not this council sees this change as a high enough priority so that the staff can prioritize it properly. I think that's an important distinction that we need from this council.
Is this?
Just going to Councilor Cook, then Councilor Lombardi.
Thank you, Your Honor. This discussion was sparked by a request that I put on the agenda of the March 6th, 2023 City Council meeting. I moved to request that the Land Use Committee make a recommendation to the City Council on changes to the zoning ordinance that would incorporate music and art lessons as an allowed home occupational use without special exception in any residential zoning district. So that was the initial request. And the reason that request went to land use is because it was fairly urgent for the arts community. And the reason it was urgent is we neglected to take action on this from a recommendation in the cultural plan of 2002, so over 20 years ago. That cultural plan specifically said that we should address zoning issues in building codes that are barriers to artists, including limitations on combining living and working space, need for higher density and smaller living spaces, and provision of signage in areas zoned residential. So that was 2002. The new cultural plan that is in the final stages is going to actually ask once again to advocate for additional artists' live workspace to retain local talent. And that's why one of the co-chairs of the Cultural Plan Subcommittee, Karen Rosania, was here tonight to talk about this as a critical need for our artists who were losing at a rapid rate. And they're moving to cities like Rochester that have adapted home occupational uses in their zoning that allow for them to teach lessons, art lessons or music lessons in their homes. So when you cannot practice your occupation and make enough money to live in Portsmouth, you leave Portsmouth. And many artists and musicians don't make enough money just painting or playing music to stay here. So what they need to do is they need to have another opportunity to make additional funds. And allowing that home occupational use allows them to do so. So this is overdue by over 20 years. And so I thought it was urgent last March when I brought it to the council. I think it's even more urgent now.
Councilor Cook, any other discussion?
Well, she answered my question, or it wasn't a question, a statement of this is really important. So
I am the artist I am today because I took art lessons from Katie Bakke in the house that I now live in. So I don't know if it was legal or off the books, but I appreciate Katie for all of the, artistic freedoms I now have. But I think, seriously, this seems like it's an issue of parking when it comes down to as much as anything else. I would like to prioritize this. I do hope as part of the master plan that we have a better plan for parking, since it's and traffic just in general. I think it has to be included in the master plan and the conversation around the master plan, because I think we all want more housing, we all want more opportunity until it comes down to cars, and we have to date no real limited ability to say, okay, if we want more housing, we don't want more cars, how do we enforce that? So I want this conversation, and we'll support this to move forward. I do think that it's a part of the biggest question that we face in Portsmouth when it comes to housing is how do we do it without all the cars that people are not looking to add to their neighborhood? And that's where I think we need to be as creative as possible with the master plan, and I hope that the planning board is doing so as a part of, to include that where it's not necessarily been it's not been the focus in the past years. Councilor Lombardi.
Yeah, I think one of the issues has been classifying as a school as opposed to an in-home business occupation. So that has to be looked at as well, I think.
All right. Any other discussion? Councilor Cook.
Thank you, Your Honor. I just also want to point out that there are a lot of people who don't realize the ordinance doesn't allow them to offer lessons in their homes, and they're already doing so. So when we talk about parking and parking requirements, we need to be realistic about what actually happens versus an ideal.
Yeah, I'm not, the comments on parking weren't to try to get super and solve everything that we have to do, but that's what I do recall it falling down on before, and what a lot of our conversations have fallen down on. Separate from this, I would like to see a more inclusive understanding of how do we limit parking from a housing standpoint, or decouple it, because we're going to need to if we're going to have as much progress as we'll need on housing. All right, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right. Approval of grants and donations. Acceptance of donation to Department of Public Works from Mark Falzone, Scenic America, in the amount of $1,500 for the planting of a memorial tree in recognition of Dr. Jeffrey Clark. I'd wait a sample motion to accept and approve the donation to the Public Works Department in the amount of $1,500 for the planting of a memorial tree in the right-of-way of 152 Middle Street in recognition of Dr. Jeffrey Clark. And if folks...
So moved.
Second.
This is right in front of their house.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Councilor Cook?
I just have a question about this, a clarifying question. I had a concern about repaving Middle Street, and when we're redesigning Middle Street, that we're not planting a tree that we're going to end up having to remove.
I don't think as part of, I don't think in the redesign goes all the way to to Martha's house. I think that was separate, but can we assume that Peter's not going to plant a $1,500 tree to pull it up in a year or two? Can we get that? We got that affirmation, and a fitting tribute to Jeff, and thank you to Mark Falzone of Scenic America. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Next up, acceptance of grant to the Senior Center in the amount of $10,000. Move to approve and accept the grant as presented.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Grant for the Police Department in the amount of $12,499. Wait a motion to approve and accept the grant as presented.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Grant for the Police Department in the amount of $14,403.29. I'd wait a motion to approve and accept the grant as presented.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Donation to the Police Department in the amount of $7,000. I'd wait a motion to approve and accept the donation as presented.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? a donation to the police department in $2,500. I'd wait a motion to approve and accept the donation as presented.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, we've got a couple more meetings like this. We're going to get that police station built. Acceptance of the acceptance of the Violence Against Women Act VAWA grant in the amount of $25,000, $25. Await a motion to approve and accept the grant as presented.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, city manager's informational items.
Your Honor, at the risk of requesting a walk-on, could we ask Director of Public Works Peter Rice to give a flooding update at this time? So that he can take his leave after
Yep.
that. Come on up, Peter.
This would have come under miscellaneous, but we are putting this under informational as a verbal report back.
So I was trying to think of some biblical reference or something that would put this all in perspective. But I think, Trevor, the rest, you don't like the weather in New Hampshire, wait a minute. It's been a long week of varied weather. And I got when the question came up, I got confused. What was the source of the issue? Was it the 14 inches of snow we had? Was it the 2.5 inches of rain afterwards? Was it the 2 inches of rain 2 days later? No, it was the astronomical high tide with the onshore wind, which led to the highest tidal elevation that I've ever seen in town. And I think what's been recorded in Boston, it was the highest tide observed to date. We were very fortunate in that it wasn't a hurricane and it wasn't a blizzard that this occurred. It was shocking to be down on the corner of Parrott and Junkins and see 1.5 feet of water streaming across from side to side. The areas of flooding are areas that we've seen before, for the most part. Ceres Street, sections of Vaughan, Bartlett, Marcy Street, and a couple spots down near the Players Ring, which was probably the worst hit area. Players Ring, which is a city-owned building but maintained by the theater, had some significant flooding. The Shaw Building was damaged. We had about 2 feet of water in the furnace area. Both furnaces were destroyed or ruined. And so we're replacing those, obviously 4 feet higher and in a different configuration. Though that was probably the worst. Mechanic Street Pumping Station did take on some water from a vent pipe that was 6 inches higher than our last high tide, but since it was a foot higher than the last high tide, it got into that vent pipe and got 4 feet of water downstairs in an area that's supposed to be dry. We were fortunate that they are pumps that are designed to be able to handle water. They're not typically in that situation, but they were able to handle it. We've made modifications now that we know of that vent pipe to address that. Marcy Street down near the other pumping station, which is down near Newcastle Avenue, was about 6 inches from the doorway in terms of elevation. There were a number of residents in that direct area on the corner of Humphreys and Marcy that were inundated and toilets overflowing. It is a stark reminder of the climate we are in. As we all know, weather is the periodic version, and climate is what we see over the long trends. We had 2 significant high tides in the last week, and they were very impactful. We were fortunate in that we didn't get the same damage that Rye received, and Northampton and Hampton, Kittery, but it's still a good indication of the weak points in our system and what we need to be focusing on to tighten things up a little bit. We did see water going across the access road to the treatment plant at Pierce Island. As you know, we are moving forward with a resiliency project there to raise the elevation of that roadway. We will be doing modifications to pumping stations to make sure that we get them higher so that they are not as easily inundated. Shaw Building, as you know, is slated as a project for consideration to be raised. However, that whole area, Strawberry Bank, as well as the Players Ring and Shaw Building, they're all going to get inundated, and there needs to be a comprehensive view and a real deep, it's kind of soul-searching in terms of our philosophical approach on how we're going to address these challenges moving forward. It's easy to say, well, let's just raise a wall up a little higher, but you need to take a topographic point and draw a line and kind of scribe it around the entire waterfront to say how high does it have to be along the entire area of the city to be able to manage water from not just going around the walls and finding a way in. And then once you do that, you need to think about how you get stormwater out, similar to Louisiana and other areas of the South that get inundated. So this is is something that we're going to be working on. I know the Climate Action Plan is really starting to delve deeper into that. It is something that I was speaking to Councilor Cook during the event, and the quick reaction is not necessary at this time. I mean, we're probably going to see this type of thing in the next couple of years, 2 or 3 times a year. If we start to see it more frequently and we start to see more significant damage, then we're going to have to regroup. But I think the planning we're doing now to look at resiliency, how do we harden things, how do we acknowledge that you're going to have flooding, and just realize that inundation is going to occur, and just make sure whatever's in the way can handle that. And so water comes in, we're interrupted for a little while, then water goes out, and then we go back to what we're doing. These are significant investments for any community, and I do not want to make light of it. It is something that we'll be struggling with for a number of years into the future. But I think we're more than capable of coming up with a plan. It's just a matter of being realistic and realizing that at times we're going to be inconvenienced, and there's going to be challenges. There's going to be water damage. There's going to be things that we have to periodically pick up. So,
Thank you, Peter.
short and sweet.
Councilor Tabor, looks like, your part was. Let's see on the questions.
Yeah, that's sobering. As I understand it, the Shaw had 30 inches of water, and both furnaces are out.
Correct. I think it was 26 inches of water, but yes, around 30 inches.
Yeah. So that there, as you say, that whole area, that whole drainage area, water wants to find its way back to where it was 100 years ago.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, there are things that we can do to tighten up the system. Some of the challenges we face when you submerge all the sewer lines in the area, they're not watertight manhole covers, so water gets in, which causes the wet wells to be full, and you can pump full speed and you can't drain the ocean. So, I mean, there are things we can do. We can tighten up those manholes to get them watertight. We can raise wet well elevations so water doesn't get in. We can look at some modifications to keep things going to protect that infrastructure, but it's not going to necessarily address the inconveniences to residents and the impact to roadways, which is a significant thing. I mean, the fire department had a difficult time responding to a multiple alarm down in Rye because a section of Route 1A was 3 feet underwater. So, I mean, there are impacts that, that are beyond just, minor inconveniences.
Councilor Blaylock.
I'll just state that our neighbors, Newcastle, I think they were much worse off. They were actually isolated I talked to some of their leaders from their community, and they had to significantly rethink their plan.
Yeah, and I received a call from the Coast Guard. Their station got pretty much wiped out, and they had to relocate their vessels. And for a brief period, they had their vessels stored at the Prescott Park pier. And so it's, it is a sobering occurrence.
We, as a city, have supported the rebuilding or the raising of that causeway, as that's a federal request. Thank you, Peter. I think that the topography of the city of Portsmouth, the Piscataqua, that it has to take that bend in the river from the storm surge provides some protection, seemingly, versus what Hampton, Newcastle, Rye discovered, Kittery discovered. But as we continue to face this, it's important, from the climate action plan as well as sustainability, from a recommendation of resiliency. Those have to be priorities to make sure that we're protecting what we currently have down there from a life safety property standpoint. But that's although we don't have a long time, it's a longer term horizon to incorporate into the capital improvement plan. So thank you.
Okay.
Thanks, Peter. Thank you, Mayor. Next up would be a report back on the Jones Avenue scrapyard. Attorney, Deputy City Attorney McCourt put in a report back, and the report back suggests a more full and complete update at the next council meeting, which is on February 5th. If the council wishes, he could give a partial update just to learn what we've got in the interim. That's the pleasure of the council.
Sure, we can hear that. I guess reading it, they were closed, but there were still some reports of activity. Is that a fair assessment?
Yes, thank you, Mayor, City Council. The scrap metal yard was closed for a week since the last time City Council met. Nonetheless, Zoning Enforcement Officer Jason Page has been out to the property on 7 separate occasions with a decibel reader to read at various times of the day, to take readings of the sound emanating from the property. Before providing any sort of conclusions, I would wait for more data here, but based on what we have so far, it seems what's changed, I guess, in my mind and my understanding of the ordinance is that our specific ordinance, which dictates the levels of, the decibel levels permissible in a residential district, seems unenforceable, frankly, in this neighborhood. Anything above 55 decibels is prohibited during the day in this neighborhood. And specifically in front of Mac Metals, ambient noise is anywhere between 67 and 70 decibels. And that's consistent with ambient noise at the South Cemetery. Jason went over and took decibel readings over at the cemetery and saw about the same ambient noise. Now, that's not to diminish the claims of the neighbors. I'm not trying to do that. They were all here. We heard them. They seem credible for sure. And there were increases in sound when increases in those decibel levels when when Mac Metals was operating. But based on these, again, preliminary findings, it seems that a different approach than enforcing this particular provision of the ordinance may be appropriate here. And that's I guess where we are so far. And I have been in contact with Attorney Colby Gamester, who's the attorney for Mac Metals. He has requested a meeting with city staff to sit down and talk about ways that we can address sort of the two issues that are here at the property. One is the noise from the actual operation of the scrap metal yard, and the second is the noise from the city project, and hopefully relocating the laydown area for the city project come springtime. Those are the two things we hope to be able to address in a meeting like that. But when I was speaking with former city attorney Bob Sullivan about this issue, just kind of trying to see what thoughts he may have, he brought to mind a similar issue, which was at Prescott Park with the noise out there, and maybe the particular solution that was arrived to there may or may not be appropriate. I don't know, but the approach that was taken that he kind of advanced to me was a collaborative one where we work with the property owner, we work with the neighbors to try and come up with something that provides something tangible for everybody to agree upon, acknowledging that they have the right to operate their business, but the people in the surrounding neighborhood have a right to enjoy their homes. And I guess that's where we're at now. I do anticipate having more information at the next city council meeting, but I'd be happy to answer any questions anyone may have.
Any questions? Will we have something for? Are we expecting a meeting of the minds by the next city council meeting in terms of a collaborative approach that could be presented to the council and then thus the broader city, including this neighborhood as well? Or are we expecting that to take a little bit longer?
Well, Mayor, I mean, you're asking if some of the people that I haven't talked to yet will agree with something that I haven't come up with yet. So
sounds like no.
I would conservatively, I'd say probably not.
Okay. All right.
But hopefully, yes.
Hopefully. All right. Okay. So, and then the next meeting, we will have a report back more on a more exhaustive ambient noise report based on the fact that Mac Meadows won't be closed for a week during that time period?
Correct. We'll have more data and hopefully some information arising out of a meeting with the property owner.
Okay. Thank you very much. Attorney McCourt.
Thank you.
Thanks, Trevor. Briefly, a verbal update from the last Pease Development Authority Board meeting, which was held last week. Highlights include, from the finance report, operating revenues at PDA were down slightly, but they look forward to 3 salt ships coming in January, large ones. Operating expenses are down over 12%, so that's helping to offset. There's a new building approved for 68 New Hampshire Avenue, a 35,000 square foot office building with a 74-year lease. There was approval of a revised concept plan for the Sig Sauer expansion at 165 Arboretum, which, by the way, is in Newington. So that will be dealt with by the Newington Planning Board. There's an update on the Terminal Improvement Project federal grant, which was recently approved by the state. And at the airport, both parking revenues and fuel flowage fees are both up, so that's good. Captain Gino Marconi reports that at the Commercial Fish Pier Building Replacement Project in Portsmouth here, they are the recipient of $850,000 in ARPA funding for design and engineering and bid document production for the replacement of that 4,000 square foot structure. And there's also additional ARPA funds coming through the state to support the Market Street Marine Terminal Maintenance Dredging Project. So if you can believe it, they're looking to spend $1.67 million on that effort, and 62% of that number is just to mobilize the dredging equipment, which tells you how big a deal getting that piece in place is. So that's the update from January. Thank you. There is no PDA board meeting in February. The next update will be in March.
Any questions? All right. Anything under miscellaneous? Councilor Cook.
Thank you, Your Honor. I have 2 quick things. For those of you who didn't have the opportunity last week, we had presentations last week on Americans for the Arts and the most recent study. Councilor Lombardi joined me at the announcements. I wanted to highlight that the arts community generated $70.2 million for the local economy, and that is a significant increase from where we were. It's over a $15 million increase from the last study. It's a pretty significant increase. 29.1 million of that was direct spending on the local economy. 41.1 million was local spending by audience members outside of admission, so not on the event they were going to, but shopping downtown, going to restaurants in town. Our arts community generates 1,250 jobs, pays $50.1 million in local payroll, and earns the city $1.8 million in government revenue. That's parking, mostly, revenue. So this is a pretty significant industry for Portsmouth, and I should note that one of the interesting facts from that meeting was that the arts community in New Hampshire generates is a bigger industry than construction and education. So, so I think it's really important. Those were great statistics coming out of that. And the second arts item, just a reminder, Chris Dwyer was kind enough to join us tonight. You're invited to participate in public input sessions January 25th or February 15th, 6:30 p.m. at the library in the Levinson Room on the new Pierce Island Public Art Project. If you can't join one of those times, there's also one at noon on February the 12th via Zoom.
I didn't hear Kate say this, so maybe she did, but it's just interesting that every couple who attends a venue spends $100 outside of the tickets they buy for that venue in Portsmouth. And Portsmouth has the highest return of any city and state from that.
Anything else? Thank you, Councilor Lombardi and Councilor Cook. Anything else under miscellaneous? Wait a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Good night, Portsmouth.